As millions of dragons poured from the sky, Earth faced doomsday, and Yu-Jite, our protagonist, was having another bad day. He stood alone in a world that looked like total hell. It was his sixth life, and, yep, he failed again. Monsters and dragons were everywhere, the whole sky just full of chaos. Our MC wondered for a second if things would have been different if he'd just listened to that green dragon's advice, but then he told himself he had no regrets. He'd already lived through all this 6 times, so he knew that messing up and learning from it was just part of the deal. He remembered just a couple of minutes ago when those little dragons begged him to let them free. The green one said her friend killed herself because of our MC. So, is he satisfied now? But fuck no, this heartless protagonist just said all of this was because of them from the start, so he doesn't feel any guilt at all. He walked toward her and gave an ultimatum. They are the reason why everything turned this way. And now, he comes to face this reality again, grabbed his formless sword, yeah, a pretty insane weapon, and started chopping his way through the monsters, refusing to just give up. Dude fought like a beast, taking down dragons and creatures one after another, even though he was completely worn out by the end. He climbed on top of the ruins and realized, with a tired heart, that no matter how many monsters he killed, there would always be more. The system didn't care either. It flashed a message right in his face and told him Earth had entered the apocalypse state. That was basically the system's way of saying, bro, you lost. But as Jite stood there with nothing left to give, something wild happened. Huge golden clock gears started spinning in the sky. The Grand Clock Authority kicked in, which is the highest rank X skill, and time itself began to rewind. Jite finally closed his eyes, letting go of everything, and decided maybe his efforts weren't all pointless after all. The system announced that time had reset, and bam! Now the world was back in the present day. Crowds filled the city streets, jaws dropping at this creepy purple gate floating in the sky. People were freaking out, telling each other to call the cops. Some confident dude tried to calm his buddy down, telling him nothing was going to happen, and even tried to snap a selfie in front of the gate. Big mistake, man. Suddenly, monsters jumped out of the gate and ate the guy alive right there, spraying blood all over the street. Phones hit the pavement, everyone started screaming, and just like that, the normal world turned into a horror movie. From that day on, purple gates popped up everywhere on Earth, and armies of monsters, knights, and all sorts of weird creatures started pouring into Earth. Humanity was about to get wiped out, honestly, but then something wild happened. Inside some people, a strange new power appeared, and that started the new era called the New Genesis. They began grabbing kids with special skills from all over the place and brought them to this floating island called Hateling for training. That place became the Global Academy City, Lair, and this was where Jite, on his 7th try, showed up again. Now, in a sketchy alley, a criminal with a knife grabbed a woman and screamed at the crowd to back off, swearing he would kill her. The police surrounded him, telling him to drop his weapon and give up. The guy lost it, yelling that his life was over anyway and he would take everyone down with him. But then, out of nowhere, our hero Jite showed up right behind the criminal and calmly told him that he should surrender, just like the police said. The criminal was shocked. Like, when did this guy appear behind him? He swung his knife, guessing Jite must be a cop too. Jite dodged him super smoothly and then just knocked him out with a single hit, telling him that he wasn't just a cop, he was the police. No lie, the poor guy hit the ground so hard, he passed out right there. He then looked at his own hand, kind of annoyed with himself, because he forgot to control his crazy strength while playing police officer. Dude really needed to chill. The same day, everyone was talking about what happened. A coworker explained how Ju Hoshik, the superhuman criminal, got trapped in the shops during a chase and ended up grabbing an innocent woman. But looking at the knocked-out criminal, Jite's coworker just begs him not to use too much force, but our MC just acted like he didn't care at all. He looked around and realized he didn't recognize anyone. Truth was, he hadn't even bothered to show up to work since the first regression. The real reason he dropped his normal life was actually pretty sad: the death of the baby dragons. These little dragons came from another world called Ascalepa, just trying to have fun and make happy memories on Earth. But things went horribly wrong. Some lost their minds in wars, some couldn't handle all the hate from humans and just collapsed, and others even gave up on life after failing their missions. When they died, the adult dragons got furious and attacked humanity, leading to the world ending over and over. Even with all the insane power he gained from living so many lives, he had basically maxed out and couldn't get any stronger. Yet, he still couldn't fix things by himself. So now, he decided to try something totally different. As Jite got ready to leave, a policewoman stopped him and asked if he wanted to go out to dinner after work. She was pretty cute about it, but this heartless MC said no, since he had somewhere else to be. She asked where, and our boy just dropped a bomb, saying he was going to Europe. Scene change. Now he was in Florence, Italy. There was a green-haired girl in the park, laughing and playing with kids, making flower crowns like she didn't have a care in the world. Jite watched her from a distance, then walked up and greeted her. She turned around, super shocked, and Jite gave her a serious look, telling her she had to come with him. The girl used some magic power to understand what he said and greeted him back, a little unsure. She wanted to know why he was looking for her, and Jite just told her he had business with her. Confused, she asked if he knew who she really was, and he nodded. The girl then gave an awkward little laugh and tried to act cool, saying why she needed to come when she didn't know who Jite was. She claimed the only thing she really noticed was that he had massive power and definitely didn't belong here. Jite went quiet for a second. The girl looked at him with big, careful eyes and asked if he'd come to kill her. Our boy shook his head. He came with peace. That shocked her, so she nervously asked if this was a kidnapping. Well, Jite said it was pretty similar. The girl tried to make more jokes about what he wanted with dragons. Could he be one kind of pervert? But our boy just snapped and told her to quit messing around. He got serious and explained that he was here to protect her in this messed up world, but if she didn't listen, he'd have to get rough about it. He also mentioned how the Green Dragon clan's eyes could see things normal people couldn't, and he basically hoped she was smart enough to figure out he wasn't lying. The girl gave a little smile and asked if she would get nice treatment from him as long as she behaved. Jite said, sure. She said she understood there wasn't really another option, but she wanted him to treat her like a guest in return. She winked and stuck out her pinky finger, wanting him to promise. Jite saw the trembling hand and realized, yeah, she was definitely scared of him. Still, he agreed, and they made a pinky promise, which started their weird new partnership. Fast forward to the next morning, the girl peeked out from behind the door, drowning in an oversized shirt, and wondered if the boss was up yet. She shuffled into the living room and saw Jite just chilling there, surrounded by some creepy black mist. She called out to him, kind of worried. Jite, totally calm, told the shadows in front of him that nothing bad would happen as long as he followed his orders. Then, out of nowhere, the shadows turned into an exact copy of Jite. That shadow was his SS rank skill, the Grand Duke Shadow. The shadow bowed politely to his lord and walked right past the girl, who froze with wide eyes because that shadow was basically looked the 100% same with Jite. Jite then told her not to worry, saying it was just a clone going to work for him. Then he asked if she slept okay. She sat down next to him, realizing he was planning to stay and not go to work himself. He explained that the shadow clone was his ability, so technically, he was still working. He said he needed to stay by her side from now on. The girl laughed awkwardly and said she got the idea. Then she suggested having breakfast together, hoping it would help calm the mood. But he tried to say he didn't need to eat, yet she wouldn't take no for an answer. She said it was weird eating by herself when the man of the house just sat there doing nothing. So Jite asked if she was always so obsessed with eating food, pointing out that dragons didn't even need it to survive. The girl just smiled and swung her feet, saying it wasn't about needing food, it was about the fun and energy good meals bring. Suddenly, she jumped up and said this whole situation was lame, insisting they go shopping so she could show him what breakfast could really do. Jite tried to say he was fine, but she ignored him. Soon, they showed up at a huge S-Mart store. People stared at them because honestly the girl was gorgeous, and Jite looked like a total boss. Well, some girls said he is kinda handsome. Meanwhile, the green dragon hummed to herself, skipping down the aisles, while our boy followed with his usual poker face. He eventually noticed she was piling the cart like she was feeding an army and asked if this wasn't a little much for breakfast. The girl explained they needed to stock up because the kitchen was empty and they would need all this stuff for next time. She was super excited to get home and cook, but Jite had other plans. He said they should drop the groceries off and then go out to eat. Before she could get too happy, he told her there was something else they needed to do, which caught her off guard. She seemed a little bummed, but he insisted there were important things to take care of, and they had no time to waste. Next stop. A pretty shady-looking place. The girl looked around suspiciously until an old man with a metal eye showed up and teased Jite, asking if this was his girlfriend. Jite just threw out a cold threat, telling the guy to shut up and do his job unless he wanted to lose his other eye too. A little later, the girl came out holding a brand new ID card and looked like she just found treasure. She was amazed, saying this was her first ever ID. Jite was kind of shocked and asked how she even managed to live here without any ID or a bank account. The girl looked at her card and noticed her new name was U-Bomb. She wanted to know why he picked Bomb as her name, especially since he gave her his family name too. Jite pointed at the shop sign that said 4 Seasons and explained that since there were 4 dragons, he was naming them after the seasons. Bomb meant spring. She was the spring dragon. The girl beamed and said she loved it, thinking spring was all about life and happiness. She said her new name sounded beautiful. As they walked, she confessed she wasn't afraid of him anymore. But even though she said that, Her eyes could still see the dark power around him, reminding her he was crazy dangerous. Still, she told him with a big grin that she didn't think he was a bad person. Jite wondered if she could really know that after just one day. The girl, as confident as ever, said her intuition was the best because she was a green dragon. Our boy suddenly noticed she was giving him a real, honest smile, something he'd never seen from the green dragon in any of his past lives. He didn't know whether this was a good or a bad thing, but hey, as they walked together, he thought maybe, just maybe, this new beginning was actually pretty nice. Meanwhile, somewhere in Africa, under the moon, this red-haired girl was standing over some poor guy she just wrecked. The dude kept bragging about how strong he was, but honestly, he didn't even last a minute. She stepped right on his face with her boot while he screamed, but she didn't care at all. She kicked him so hard that everything went quiet. Yeah, pretty sure she broke a bunch of his bones. Then she just laughed, looking down at his body and asking if he died because her hits were just that brutal. She was rocking a creepy skull mask and bragged that her body was packed with energy tonight. That was her 199th win and not a single loss, which she thought was hilarious. Now, she was only interested in who her next victim would be. The next day, the news was blowing up. Giant battles were going down in South Africa. Some crazy group called Varkata was dropping bombs. People were saying a monster named the Night Fighter was fighting the South African Union, and it was chaos. Our protagonist Jite watched these reports in his office, eyes sharp because he knew this was his cue. Bomb, the green-haired girl, knocked on his door just then, telling him dinner was ready. So yeah, our boy agreed and decided to join her. At the table, she showed off a dish that looked straight out of a horror movie. Whole fish were shoved into purple rice, all standing up like zombies, and she waited for Jite's reaction. Super confident. She said she got the idea from a sardine dish she saw in England and thought mixing it with rice would be perfect since, you know, Koreans eat a ton of rice. But honestly, these fish looked like they were screaming for mercy, and our protagonist's face said it all. He was suffering inside. So, she was basically Shion with her death food, like in Tensura? Anyway, while he tried to choke down the food, Jite told Bomb that tomorrow he was heading out to get the red. Bomb's face turned serious. She warned him that this was going to be insanely tough. Red wasn't like her at all. She'd be a nightmare to bring in and would never listen as easily. Jite said he wanted Bomb to come help convince her, but she hesitated, saying different dragon clans usually didn't team up. Our MC was surprised, hearing that they all wanted different things. Bomb explained her style was slow and steady, but the Red Dragon clan was all about fighting, violence, and showing off how strong they were. She warned him that if he tried to force the red, it might get super dangerous. Surrendering was worse than dying for those red dragons. Jite explained things were bad. Someone was already hunting red, and if he waited, she was going to die. He told her straight up that bringing her was the only way to avoid a bloodbath. Bomb was shocked that he actually asked for help, since she thought he was the type who would just take all the pain by himself, no matter what. But then she gave a bright smile and agreed, since she didn't want Red to die either. She did have one little condition though. Bomb pointed out, dead serious, that Jite had to eat every bite of her food first. She had noticed he stopped eating and put down his spoon the second he mentioned Red. Our protagonist froze, realizing she was way too sharp for her own good. In the end, that poor guy ate that food while crying inside. This was worse than fighting a bunch of dragons. Next, the story jumped back to Africa, in a city that looked like it got nuked. Dead soldiers were everywhere, and the red-haired girl was standing among the ruins. She looked down at one of the bodies, trash-talking about how weak everyone was. She was actually pissed that her 200th win was so lame. Now that nobody in Africa could give her a good fight, she started wondering if she should head to Europe and check out Green. Somewhere nearby, two terrified soldiers hid behind a wall, whispering like scared kids. They said the whole elite squad got wiped out by that one crazy girl. One of them just prayed that he would show up soon. Suddenly, the girl was right above those two, mocking how they thought they could hide by whispering in the dark. She attacked super fast, and just as she was about to finish them, a bright golden light blasted in and stopped her. She had to jump back, shocked by how much power she just felt. Everything exploded as the red-haired girl slashed the attack. The soldier stared, completely freaked out that she could even dodge the attack from that man. Then, a massive armored knight showed up. He wondered if this wild girl was the famous Night Hunter. The soldiers all cheered because their savior, Javier Karma, had arrived. He was ranked 8th in the whole African Union, and he ordered his men to get the wounded out and fall back while he stood there, glowing like a boss. The girl called him Old Man, said his move was heavy, and guessed he was the boss around here. Javier looked her up and down, surprised she was a small girl under the mask. But the girl just dropped her sword to joke about people always got distracted by her pretty face, so they couldn't fight her right. Looking at how chill the girl was, Javier wanted to know why she wouldn't give up, since she could obviously feel how much stronger he was. But the girl just laughed like a lunatic, said she'd rather die fighting than ever surrender, and her weapon might be broken, but she wasn't running. She turned up the speed and charged, launching punch after kick at his armor. Then, she spotted an opening and got super hyped. She went for a low blow, hoping to end things with one dirty move. But after she hit him, Javier didn't even flinch. He didn't move an inch. The look on the girl's face? Pure shock. Like, what the hell was this guy made of? Javier, that big armored knight, glared at Red and basically told her that she must have only fought weaklings before. He said her fights were just games until now, but he was not about to play along. His eyes started glowing gold, and he admitted she was talented, just not talented enough for him. Then, out of nowhere, he lifted his giant sword and went full beast mode, while the poor girl freaked out and barely dodged. Next thing you know, Javier dropped his skill, Blade of Raw Ignition. The red dragon girl saw the attack coming and realized, uh-oh, there was no way she could dodge this one. So she braced herself, and boom, a huge blast of light slammed her straight into a rock wall, smashing everything in her way. Rocks went flying, dust everywhere, and it looked like she just got pancaked. Javier just stood there in the mess, thinking to himself that she was actually a monster. She strengthened her hand for a short time and blocked his attack, and now he was thinking he needed to hit even harder. When the dust started to clear, Javier looked at the destroyed wall and got worried. He wondered if the girl managed to escape. But here's what really happened. Bomb, the green-haired dragon girl, was actually hiding right behind the rubble. She was holding the wild red-haired dragon, covering her mouth to keep her quiet. Red just stared at Bomb in total shock, wondering what the hell she was doing here. Bomb whispered that she came to save her after hearing she was in deep trouble. But Red wasn't having it. She said the green dragon couldn't even fight, so what was she going to do? Yet Bomb got serious and warned her that if she kept this up, she might actually die. Red just shoved her hand away, saying she was going to finish this fight, even if it killed her. So Bomb should just butt out. But Bomb shot her a scary look, telling her that if she died, the party would be over for everyone. She started healing Red's busted arm with her magic, and reminded her that dying wasn't just her problem, it would ruin the fun for the whole dragon children on Earth. She then switched to her sweet and innocent look, saying she really wanted to stay on Earth and asked her to help. Red went quiet for a second, realizing that the knight was crazy strong and there was no way they could run. But Bomb said not to worry, the old man there would take care of it. Hearing that, Red was shocked that someone else was here too, and Bomb just smiled, saying she didn't come alone. At that moment, our boy Jite finally made his entrance onto the battlefield. Javier turned around, checking out this new guy, and trying to figure out who the hell he was. Jite stood there, all cool and calm, and said he was the red-haired girl's guardian. Javier laughed at that, acting like he didn't look like someone who could protect anyone. While this was going on, Red peeked out from behind the wall and asked if this was the man Bomb had told her about. Bomb quickly told her to stay hidden because things were about to get wild. There, Jite tried to chill everyone out, telling Javier that it was complicated and maybe they should just stop fighting now. But Javier wasn't having it. He said the red-haired girl had gone too far and he couldn't just let it slide. So Jite tried to explain she hadn't killed anyone, but that just made the knight angrier. He told him to stop playing with words. Jite kept trying to negotiate again, promising that the girl wouldn't show up here anymore and asking if Javier could just drop it. But the knight totally lost it, yelling that this was African Union territory, and as an investigator, he was going to arrest both Jite and the girl. While charging his sword with crazy golden energy, he activated his combat ability and let out a massive scream, swinging his sword with enough power to destroy the whole area. Smoke and dust shot up everywhere. Javier called out to Jite through the mess, saying that if he was really that girl's guardian, he shouldn't die so easily. But then, surprise, our boy showed up behind him, not a scratch on him, and surrounded by a creepy dark aura. Our MC just muttered how annoying this was and even joked to himself that for someone ranked 8th, this guy was not flexible at all. Javier spun around in shock, wondering when Jite even got behind him. But before he could even try another attack, Jite blitzed in and chopped off the hand holding the sword, just like that. Then he walked over, cold as ice, and told him to listen up because this was about to be the worst day of his life. He explained that as an investigator, Javier tried to arrest the red-haired girl, but instead, he ran into some unknown monster, and because he couldn't block the first attack, he lost both his arms and eyes, and the monsters got away. Javier screamed, begging him to wait, but Jite didn't care. He finished the job with one bloody move, cutting off the knight's other arm and blinding him too. Our MC figured that someone from the Union would heal the guy as long as he survived, but the fear would be burned into his brain forever. That, according to him, was the best way to control people. He thought to himself that even the violent red dragon, the so-called night fighter, was not immune to this rule. Meanwhile, Red just watched, totally horrified and stunned, and asked Bomb what kind of monster that was. But Bomb kept her cool, and simply said he was not a monster, he was a human. Red just scoffed, saying if that guy was really human, then she must be a lizard. Bro. After all that, who could blame her for thinking that? Suddenly, Jite came and told the red dragon straight up that, from now on, she was going to live in his house, under his protection. He promised to let her do her own thing most of the time and help her out if she needed it. But then his face changed, and he got super dark, warning her that if she ever crossed his line, she'd be in for a world of pain. The poor girl started shaking, looking like she was about to run, while Bomb quickly tried to make things less scary, telling her they'd explain everything later. Red started totally freaking out, asking what the hell was with all this scary stuff, but Bomb just winked at our boy, acting like it was all a fun little secret. Our MC gave the redhead her new name, Yu Yoram, which means summer, and told her not to forget it. Then he just walked off, leaving the two girls behind, totally expecting them to follow. Bomb whispered to Red, joking that she must have grown up a bit since last time, but Red just snapped back that this was not the time for stupid jokes. While all this was happening, our boy's shadow clone messaged that the mission was done. At the same time, in the Amazon rainforest, the real Jite was chilling with a blonde girl who honestly looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. He cut the connection to his shadow, muttering to himself that he did a good job. The guy was thinking that sending Bomb instead of himself was the smart move, because Red was a wild kid, and even he might not have convinced her on his own. The blonde girl noticed him talking to himself and laughed, teasing him about talking to his smartwatch like a crazy person. Well, this girl is the Golden Dragon, and let's just say she was the type who loved attention. In her 3 lives, she was always shining, but her biggest, shiniest moment? Yeah, it was also the one where she made the biggest destruction. All that attention might look cool, but it pretty much turned toxic, so now she lived out here in the jungle, hiding out even though she was here for the game. She was playing around with Jite's watch, when our MC just straight up asked her why she was living way out here with the wild animals instead of joining the humans if she was here for entertainment. That got her attention. She was surprised he knew about it. He explained that Bomb, the green dragon, had already told him, so he asked if she was scared of humans, and after a second, she admitted that she wasn't exactly terrified, but living with humans was a mess for her. People stared at her, chased her, and honestly, it sounded rough. No wonder she bailed. They went quiet for a bit, and then he asked if she liked bread. She looked at him like he was joking, saying dragons didn't even need food. But our boy whipped out a bag from his pocket using his magic skill, and suddenly, the whole place smelled like a bakery. She couldn't help herself, coming over to check it out. When she realized it was real, fresh bread, her eyes went huge. She started drooling at all the donuts and tarts, and asked why he brought so much. Our MC took the chance to invite her to come stay with him instead of hanging around in the jungle. He promised she'd be safe, and could play the game with the others too. The blonde thought about her mom's old warning, never follow weirdos, but then he said he'd buy her macarons, and, bro, all her resistance vanished. She was ready to go. Cut to the city, and now Red was standing outside on the balcony, leaves falling and her face showing she was still salty about everything. She was mumbling to herself about her earlier meeting with our protagonist. Bomb was inside, watching her. Then, Jite walked in, bringing the barefoot blonde girl with him. She announced super loudly that she only came because the sausage bread tasted way better than anything in their world. Munching on a macaron, she described the taste like it was literally heaven. Crunchy outside, soft inside, the works. Looking at them, Bomb greeted Jite, and suddenly, the blonde freaked out in pure excitement when she saw Bomb. She dashed over and hugged her super tight, telling her she missed her and saying Bomb looked even prettier than last time. The blonde then asked if Bomb lived here alone with the Mr. Bomb explained that she was also new here, and pointed out that Red was there too. Meanwhile, our MC was talking to his shadow clone, thanking it for the hard work and telling it to go back. Red poked her head in with an angry look, and she and our boy had a silent stare-off before she turned away. The blonde immediately spotted Red, ran up, and shouted her name super happily, but then she wrinkled her nose because she smelled smoke, and started complaining that the Red Dragon clan always liked things that were bad for them. Red, not having any of it, slapped a hand over the blonde's mouth and yelled at her to shut up or else she'd rip her out by the roots. I mean, wow, she was still as violent as ever. Later, our MC sat down in the living room with all 3 of them and, not wasting any time, asked how old they really were. Bomb smiled and said she was 20. The blonde, all proud, said she was 10, and Bomb added that Yoram was 15. Yoram just sat there, bored, hand on her cheek, not caring about any of it. The blonde girl got all worked up, saying dragons grew up way faster than humans, and bragging about her body, saying no one needed to treat her like a little kid. Yoram even called her out, saying there was definitely something the blonde could brag about. You know. Switching topics, the blonde asked why everyone called Red as Yoram. Was that her fake name or something? Yoram just said she didn't know anything about it. Bomb then explained that their master gave them those names, and now her own name was Bomb. The blonde looked shocked and did not like it at all. She said it was weird for him to just hand out real names before they finished growing up, because names were supposed to be really important. She quickly figured out that the names matched the seasons, so she guessed her part would be Gayul, which means autumn. Our boy nodded and made it official, telling her that her new name was Yu Gayul. And our boy suddenly pointed straight at her necklace, telling her that when that little one is born, she'd have to name it Gyul, or winter. That really shocked her. How did he know about this necklace? So, he explained that he already knew the necklace was actually a blue dragon egg using some kind of shape-changing magic, and told her to take good care of it, since it would hatch soon. Gaul couldn't believe how much this human knew. She asked him, all curious, how he figured that out. But our MC wasn't in the mood to explain. He just shut her down, saying she didn't need to know. Then, just like that, our hero went back to being all serious and announced there was only one rule from now on. He told everyone they could have fun and enjoy life on Earth, but only if they didn't step outside the fence he set. Basically, that meant they couldn't disappear from his sight. Yoram, the redhead, was not loving it. She called him a dictator and rolled her eyes. Both of the other girls looked at her with awkward vibes. But Yoram didn't care and shot them a sharp look, asking if they had a problem with any of this. Bro, this red one is so spicy like chili. Anyway, in the end, the girls agreed. Playing nearby was fine. Bomb, always the cheerful one, suddenly got all excited and suggested they go out to get some ID cards and buy things they would need for their new life here. Gaul was hyped, but Yoram just wondered out loud where the money would come from, joking that maybe robbing people would be fun. Our MC just handed Bomb a fancy black card, acting like it was nothing. He told them not to stress about money and to just go have some fun. Bomb could only thank him but asked what the spending limit was. The guy didn't even blink. He told them they could spend as much as they wanted. Yeah, you heard that right. Is this guy rich? Damn. So, the girls went totally insane on their shopping trip. They filled up carts with all kinds of clothes and stuff, no chill at all. Meanwhile, Jitae's smartwatch started blowing up with notifications about the money they were spending. Tens of millions, bro. They even went over the limit. When they got home, everyone was loaded down with boxes and bags. Yoram was holding her new sword and showing it off, looking super proud. Gaul was grinning, spinning around in her new clothes, while Bomb gave the card back to our MC, looking guilty. She admitted she was worried about spending so much money and even tried to buy him some clothes too, but the card maxed out. Our boy just reassured her that it was all good. Suddenly, Gaul called for his attention, showing off her new outfit and bragging about how many pretty clothes she got. She even pulled out a shirt that matched what he was wearing, saying she bought it to match him. He said it looked good on her, and Gaul was honestly thrilled. In the background, Yoram was checking out the blade she got. She told our hero it was a good replacement for the one she broke and wanted his opinion. He asked if she liked it, since she went for some high-end stuff. Our boy just nodded. It looks pretty good, but Yoram just shrugged and said, at least it wasn't trash. That girl, man, still as icy as ever. Then Gaul came running over with bags of clothes, super excited, telling Yoram she got her a bunch of stuff too and asking her to try them on. Yoram wasn't having it. She snapped that she wasn't her big sister and didn't need any gifts. Bomb leaned over to our boy and whispered that Yoram was just bad at showing her feelings, and was actually grateful. But somehow, he noticed Bomb was the only one who didn't really buy anything for herself, and asked her why. She pointed to a tiny pot of a plant she'd put on the kitchen table. She told him that raising plants made her feel good. He wanted to know why, and Bomb smiled, explaining that plants bloom and create memories that last forever. Suddenly she remembered something she wanted to ask. She wondered if there was any way to really enjoy life here, even with the fence he made for them. She said food and fun were nice, but that wasn't everything for them. The MC told her there definitely was a way. He pulled out a school enrollment form and asked if they wanted to go to school. Hearing that, Yoram and Gaul just stared, totally shocked. Later, the three girls came home after their school interviews looking like they'd been run over by a truck. Gaul looked nervous as hell, and told Yoram she was scared she'd be the only one to fail while the other two succeeded. Yoram was already annoyed, telling someone to just shut up. But Gaul turned her puppy eyes on, near tears, asking if she'd fail because she was a pig. But thank God this heartless MC just told her everyone did their best and tried to calm her down. But Gaul just lost it, wailing that she definitely failed to get accepted at Lair. Bomb asked where he'd been all this time, and he said he went out to pick something up. He pulled out a box, and the smell was insane. Pure magic. Bro. Gal's eyes sparkled and asked if it was bread or macarons, but Jitae told her it was something even better. He suddenly remembered a TV show where Gal, back in her famous days, got asked what her favorite food was. The host joked that she lived on morning dew, but Gal laughed and said she was human too. Then she thought hard about her favorite food. And now, fried chicken and soda showed up on the table, and the girls all stared at it like they'd never seen food before. Yoram teased Gal for acting like she was seeing fried chicken for the first time, even though she claimed it was her favorite food on TV. Gal wasn't bothered, she just decided right then that fried chicken would be her favorite from now on. Jitae then tried to leave the room to let the dragon girls enjoy their fried chicken, but Bomb stopped him with those puppy eyes, asking if he was going to eat with them. She looked like she was really hoping he'd stay, but our boy just told them to go ahead without him. Bomb didn't give up. She got all pouty and cute, basically begging him to join them, but he stayed firm. Out on the balcony, his phone started buzzing. It was the Lair administration office. The person on the other end wanted to confirm if he was the guardian for the girls, and our MC said yes. But then he found out there was some problem about the interview. He was honestly confused, because Bomb hadn't said anything weird about it. The caller dropped the bomb. Bomb got a perfect score in the candidate interview. Not only that, but the interviewers loved her so much, they wanted her to be the student rep and do the oath at the entrance ceremony. The school was so hyped, they already asked her directly. But of course, Bomb had refused. She just said nope, not doing it. Now, the office wanted Jitae to convince her, since it was such a big chance. Our boy didn't even think about it. He just shot back that he had zero interest in convincing Bomb because he respected her choices. End of story. As he ended the call, guess who showed up behind him? Yoram, all wild-haired and smoking like she owned the place, wanted to know who he was talking to and if it was about Green, but he just frowned, then told her to use Bomb's name instead of just Green. Yoram rolled her eyes and totally mocked the name, saying it was embarrassing and asking if they were playing house or something. Then, out of nowhere, she stared at him and asked what his real goal was with this whole thing. She wanted to know why he sent them to Lair. Our boy kept it simple and said he just wanted them to do what they wanted. Yoram, being her usual savage self, shot back that what she wanted was to fight. She wanted to know if there were strong people at that school. Jitae said the best of the best from all over the world were there. Yoram just snorted, calling them bratty kids, but our MC reminded her, hey, in this world, she was a kid too. That ticked her off. She smashed the balcony edge with her hand, challenging him to a real fight, saying she wanted to see just how strong he actually was if he thought he could control her. But Jitae just looked at her, icy as ever, and told her to forget it and go eat chicken. That made Yoram totally lose it. She cursed, flipped him off, and called him boring, classic Yoram. As she stormed off, Gal came running up with chicken, trying to calm her down by shoving a piece in her face. Yoram tried to scream at her, but then, out of nowhere, she just bit into the chicken. And holy crap, her whole mood changed. The taste took her by surprise. Bro, that chicken had some magic in it. Anyway, let's talk about Lair for a second. This place was nuts. A giant floating island called Hateling, just circling the planet like it was no big deal. Lair was the top school for superhuman kids, the ones with crazy powers and blessings. But honestly, most of the students came from rich families or famous clans. The regular public was kind of salty about it, saying it was just a playground for the elite. Back on campus, Gal and Bomb walked around checking everything out. Gal was super impressed, saying normal people couldn't even get in here. She started wondering if Jitae was some secret billionaire, since he just dropped cash like it was nothing. Bomb thought it was possible, saying he did act like someone rich, and Gal jumped around all happy, talking about how excited she was that everyone passed and how cool the uniforms looked. Then she suddenly realized, wait, where were Yoram and Jitae? Bomb explained Yoram had to go to the Blue Dragon dorms for her practical interview, and Jitae went with her as her guardian. Since the kids at Lair had superpowers but not a lot of common sense, adults from their families or organizations had to go with them to keep things chill. Gal said that made sense, especially with Yoram, because, let's be real, leaving her alone was a disaster waiting to happen. Bomb nodded, then explained Yoram's test was all about fighting and dueling with other students, and Gal got super hyped, wanting to go watch. But Bomb dropped the bad news, she already asked, and they said no. Gal looked crushed, asking why in the world it was forbidden. Bomb just shrugged and said if all of them showed up, it would cause chaos. As she looked up, bro, everyone was looking at them. I mean, where the hell are these cute supermodel-like girls coming from? All the other students on campus were whispering about them, talking about how pretty and mysterious they looked. Those dragon girls were basically celebrities on day one. The scene flipped to the Blue Dragon Academy's Changchun Hall, where things were getting wild. Inside the ring, students were bashing each other with wooden swords, the crowd screaming like it was the Super Bowl. Jite sat with a face like stone, just watching. This was just a child play for him. A coach was losing his mind, yelling at the kids to fight properly, but then a long-haired guy with a spooky smile told everyone to calm down, saying they should think about the kids' feelings and not stress them out. This guy walked straight up to them, introduced himself as Wei Yan, the head professor of the Blue Dragon Academy, and talked about how excited he was to work with the Guardians. All the other adults were fangirling over him, saying he was a legend. Jite? He just sat there, silent as ever. People kept praising that head professor, whispering that he wasn't just rich and powerful, he was also a war hero. Suddenly, the announcer's voice boomed through the hall, calling for number 124 and number 7. Our protagonist focused, eyes sharp, as Yoram walked into the ring with her wooden sword, looking totally bored. She muttered that things better not be lame, or she'd seriously run away from home. She glared at her opponent, a blonde girl, thinking this better be worth her time. The crowd went wild, trying to guess who would win. Sofia Volova or the red-haired girl? Some dude in the audience said the redhead was totally his type, but his buddy told him to focus, saying the real question was who'd win, not who was hottest. The friend was sure Sofia would take the win, since she used to be in the RIL forces, even before starting school. The RIL were basically the Russian airborne hunter forces, famous for being terrifying and putting their people through training that was basically torture. Near the arena, a giant dude was going absolutely nuts, yelling at his girl in the ring to crush it and reminding everyone just how much he expected from her. The girl, Sofia, was standing there, feeling like she wanted to disappear out of pure embarrassment. Yoram, who was her opponent and clearly loved to mess with people, spotted all this and started throwing shade. She said Sofia's dad seemed like he was losing it, and then cranked the sarcasm up, telling her maybe she should just quit and run back to daddy's arms. She even called her daddy's girl with a grin that would make you really want to slap her. And Sofia? Her whole face just switched. She glared at Yoram and said in the coldest way that she should shut her mouth right now. You could see the fire in her eyes, and she even warned her that if that red hair kept going, she wouldn't leave this place alive. But Yoram was loving it, bro. She just smiled that crazy smile, basically daring Sofia to try her luck. The crowd picked up on the tension, some of them saying that kind of look was classic for someone from the RIL, but even they admitted Yoram looked pretty tough herself. At this point, everybody got real serious, ready to throw down. The bell rang, and Sofia shot forward like a bullet. The two girls smashed into each other, and Yoram managed to block the first hit, tossing out a sly comment that Sofia's speed was not bad. Then, with a quick move, she went for a big counter, swinging her stick and yelling that Sofia should taste this. Sofia wasn't backing down. She rushed in again, landing a hit so fast that Yoram barely blocked it, but even then, her shirt got ripped. Dude, Yoram went nuts. This was her new dress. But Sofia didn't care. She just kept swinging, chasing Yoram around the ring with some serious close combat attacks. The crowd was probably loving it, all those hits and blocks echoing through the place. Sofia tried a low kick, but Yoram jumped up like some acrobat, pushed off the iron fence, and dropped down with her sword aimed straight for the enemy's head. Sofia threw her hands up to block, but the force of the hit sent tremors down her arms. She actually whimpered from the pain. Yoram saw her chance and just went all in, attacking so fast and hard that Sofia was stuck on defense, getting pushed back step by step. Then, in a blink, she zipped behind her. She said Sofia must have thought she was strong, just because Yoram was taking it easy at first. After that, she just destroyed her, landed blow after blow, hitting Sofia so hard that she dropped to the floor, coughing up blood. She couldn't even get up. Yoram stood over her, sword at her face, and the ref called it victory for candidate number 124. Yoram laughed, saying, Sofia acted tough but turned out to be weak as hell. Hearing that, Sofia got so fucking angry. This red-headed lizard is so good at anger baiting people. Sofia's guardian ran down, yelling her name. The crowd started whispering, mocking how some so-called elite got beaten so badly, while others commented on how she'd been crushed, even though she looked strong at first. People were in awe of Yoram, saying she hadn't even gotten scratched and was just playing around with Sofia. The insults kept coming, with some folks saying Sofia must have only gotten in because she looked pretty, not for her fighting skills. Meanwhile, a nurse rushed over and started healing Sofia with some glowing green magic. Sofia just sat there, head down, hair covering her face, while people called her a glass cannon, strong-looking but breaks easy. The nurse told the guardian that Sofia's arms were broken and would need time to heal. Sofia was shaking and telling her guardian she was fine and could keep going. The guardian tried to comfort her, putting on a sad smile and saying she did her best. But her skills just weren't enough against someone like that. He said he wasn't disappointed, and maybe this defeat would actually help her get stronger in the future. The guy even got all philosophical about it, saying everyone grows from losing sometimes. Before he even finished talking, the nurse was clearly freaked out, saying her daughter was walking to Yoram again. Then, out of nowhere, Sophia summoned a knife and, muttering in this super creepy voice, said she hadn't given up, just took a step back. There was this wild look in her eyes. She was totally losing it. Yoram was leaving the ring, thinking it was over, when Sophia shouted at her, asking where that bitch thought she was going because this fight wasn't done yet. Then Sophia just snapped, charging at her with real killing intent, stabbed her from behind. Up in the stands, our protagonist only watched all this with a cold, silent stare. Dude didn't even flinch. Yoram's eyes went dark with anger as she realized what was happening, muttering curses under her breath. She really got stabbed from behind by a mere kid. Sophia then screamed. She was going to kill her, and attacked like a maniac. The whole place went nuts. Audience and teachers were freaking out as the fight turned totally insane, like a crime scene instead of a match. Yoram finally understood that Sophia wanted this to be a real fight to the death. So, she decided to go for it as well. So, she grabbed Sophia's hair super hard and made her scream out in pain. Yoram was not playing around now. She then smashed her fist straight into that bitch face. She didn't stop there either. She just kept punching and punching, not caring at all, even while blood was flying everywhere. The students watching could not believe it. Some of them were probably thinking, what the hell? Why isn't anyone stopping this? Then Yoram finished it off with a massive hit that knocked Sophia out cold, her face a total mess and blood everywhere. She was breathing heavy but still looked at Sophia's body and said it was not over yet. She picked up the knife. Sophia dropped and walked over, her eyes burning like she wanted revenge, telling everyone she was going to pay her back double. But just as Yoram was about to do something crazy, Sophia's dad jumped in and grabbed her hand, yelling that she needed to stop because she had done enough already. Wei Yan, the big deal teacher, wasn't waiting around either. He shouted for the mages to start some cross-space spell and told everyone to pause the whole test. Suddenly, blue light shone out everywhere, and the magic started to lock everyone inside it. Yoram was not happy about it. She screamed, asking why she was getting yelled at when Sophia stabbed her first. Anyway, she argued that with Sophia's dad's strength, he could have stopped his daughter without hurting anybody. Well, that makes sense. Wei Yan somehow tried to cool things down and told the big guy to take care of his daughter first. Then he turned to Yoram, smiling calmly, and told her his assistant had gone to get her guardian, so she should just wait and get treatment for now. Yoram snapped back, saying she wasn't going to stay quiet since she was still mad as hell. Wei Yan lowered his voice and said he saw everything. He understood her anger, but if things got any worse, he wouldn't be able to protect her. He warned her that her whole family could get dragged into trouble. He even hinted that he knew about her other sister, which made Yoram stop and stare at him like, what the hell does he know? Wei Yan pretty much threatened her, saying that if she kept going like this, everyone could also get hurt, and she wouldn't feel safe at all. He finished with a weird little smile, telling her she had to wait for her guardian. Yeah, this dude is trash. Right then, our boy showed up like a boss and told Wei Yan to stop looking for him since her guardian was already there. Jite just walked through the magical barrier like it was air and told Wei Yan to stop bothering the injured kid and talk to him instead. Yoram looked shocked, but kind of relieved, and Wei Yan looked totally caught off guard by how someone with no background like Jite could easily pass through the barrier. Next, the two guardians were sitting in Wei Yan's office. Wei Yan tried to sound chill, giving them some tea, but inside, he was thinking hard, realizing Jite was crazy powerful and he'd never even heard of this Yu family before, so he decided he'd need to check them out later. Wei Yan then started the meeting with a nervous laugh, apologizing for what happened, and said the good news was that neither girl was badly hurt. Sophia was getting treatment, and Yoram was already out of the hospital. He then suggested everyone should just let it go, since the girls would see each other at the academy anyway, and promised he'd take care of the details if the guardians said it was okay. Mikhailov, Sophia's father, sat there with his eyes closed, quiet for a bit, then admitted this mess started with them, so he'd apologize first. He introduced himself as Sophia's guardian and explained that Sophia was just young and lost control of her emotions this time. But our boy Jite? He didn't even blink. He gave Mikhailov a cold stare and said he wasn't about to accept some apology from another guardian instead of the girl herself. Mikhailov exploded, calling him stubborn, and asked if he was acting tough because he didn't know who Mikhailov worked for. Jite didn't even flinch. He kept sipping his tea and asked if that's how people apologized where Mikhailov was from. That set Mikhailov off. He got up, mad as hell, and asked if our protagonist wanted him to drag Sophia in there and force her to say sorry. Jite just shot with a quick yes. Wow, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Seeing everyone was so mad, Wei Yan freaked out, trying to calm things down with his anxious smile. But Jite made it clear again. He wasn't there for some apology. He wanted to know why Mikhailov didn't step in to stop Sophia when she grabbed a knife and attacked. Mikhailov shouted that it happened too fast to react. But Jite called that a pathetic excuse and asked if he wasn't ashamed to hide behind a kid and make excuses for not doing his job. That pushed Mikhailov over the edge. He stomped the floor, grabbed his collar, and threatened him in a scary low voice, asking if he really wanted to mess with the RIL organization in a tiny country like this, all while letting out some crazy blue energy. He was still trying to act tough, talking smack about the Yu family like he thought they were just some random nobodies. But suddenly, a knife was pointed at him. And of course, this shocked him in an instant. Where the fuck is this knife coming from? Jite pointed out that Mikhailov's knife was really sharp and warned that one little mistake could have ended badly. There, Mikhailov froze. He looked down and suddenly noticed Jite was holding his special dagger. Yeah, the one he always kept hidden away. His eyes went wide, wondering how the hell this nobody man could grab it without him even noticing. Jite just said the sheath was super loose, so it was easy for him to steal it. But this doesn't make sense. Mikhailov's chi sense is at its highest state. The next second, our boy was standing right behind him, whispering something super creepy in his ear. It was a threat. No one in their right mind would ignore that. He told Mikhailov to avoid empty alleyways, which honestly sounded like a warning only a psycho would give. After that, he just put the dagger back on the table like it was no big deal, told Mikhailov it was over, and said he was leaving. Mikhailov just stood there, still staring at Jite with shock and fear all over his face. Meanwhile, Wei Yan, who had been sweating bullets the whole time, finally let out a huge sigh of relief, like he just dodged a total disaster. When Jite walked out, he found Yoram waiting for him in the hallway. He asked her if she was all right. Yoram didn't even flinch. She said it was just a scratch and bragged about how tough the Red Dragon clan was. That's classic Yoram, right? Our boy only nodded and told her that was good, but then her mood changed fast. She stopped, looked at him with a pout, and quietly asked if he thought she messed up too. She admitted she felt like this whole mess started because of her. She was angry and felt bad, but she figured maybe she should have acted more mature, like a grown-up instead of a hothead. But our MC wasn't having it. He cut her off with a serious face and said she actually did fine, which really surprised her. Then, in his usual cold style, he gave her some wild advice. If this ever happened again, she should just finish her fight somewhere nobody could see her. Bro, that was pretty dark, but Yoram loved it. She grinned like a little devil and teased him, reminding him he'd better not regret saying that. Jite, cool as always, said he wouldn't. Out of nowhere, he told her to go start packing when they got home. Yoram asked where they were even going. So, he told her they were moving into the Lair Academy dorms. Yoram just rolled her eyes and joked about how Gal, the tiny yellow chick, was probably way too excited about this. Then, someone called out for Jite. Both of them turned around and saw Wei Yan coming up with his usual creepy smile, asking if he could talk to them again. Jite said he thought they were already done, but Wei Yan insisted he had something important to say, something that also involved Yoram. Yoram groaned, stuck her finger in her ear, and complained about getting scolded even more, but Wei Yan said this time he was offering her a good deal. He went for it and asked her if she wanted to be the freshman representative at Blue Dragon Academy. He made it sound like a dream. Tons of scholarship money, rare magic items, tons of media attention, the whole deal. Our boy, not trusting this guy for a second, asked if Wei Yan even had the power to offer something like that on his own. But Wei Yan just grinned and said he was super close with the vice principal, Ma Namyun. The second Jite heard that, his face went blank and dark, so you knew something was up. Turns out, inside his head, our MC was thinking about some heavy stuff. Both Wei Yan and Ma Namjun were demonic humans. Contrary to superhumans who take on blessings, they instead take on void. These were humans who basically gave up their humanity for power, going full rage monster and just wanting to destroy people. They were the reason the world had so many problems, and Jide had lost some really important things because of them in his first and second lives. Honestly, he wanted to beat Wei Yan to death every time he saw him, but he forced himself to stay patient. He decided that Wei Yan needed to suffer a lot more before death. Anyway, he then told him that the only opinion that mattered was the person involved. He was just Yoram's guardian, after all. Wei Yan agreed, laughing and saying it was all up to Yoram in the end. He looked right at her and started hyping up the offer, talking about how the school was changing and how he wanted her to be the leader at the big year-end event. He even held her hand and asked her to help him shape the future. But Yoram? She was ice cold. She told him straight up nope, she didn't want the job. Wei Yan just stared at her, thinking maybe he didn't hear her right. But she repeated it totally stone-faced. He heard her perfectly. Then she turned to Jite and said they should just go home and pack. Wei Yan started losing it. He wanted to know why she even bothered coming to the test if she was going to say no. Yoram shrugged and said she was bored in her room and just wanted to start a fight for fun. You could see the veins popping on Wei Yan's face. The dude was about to blow his head. He tried one more thing, pointed out the window at a huge crowd of reporters waiting to hear his side of the story about the stabbing. Then he threatened her, saying her life at Lair depended on whatever he said next, so she better think about it. Yoram just turned her back on him, said she wasn't doing it, and walked away like a boss. Wei Yan shot her the nastiest look ever, muttering that he hoped she didn't regret this choice. Man, our girl Yoram didn't even blink. She just left him standing there, totally wrecked. That's how you keep things interesting. Anyway, when they stepped out of the building, it didn't take long for Yoram to get spotted. The second she showed her face, a pack of journalists rushed over like hungry wolves, all of them shoving mics and cameras in her way. Flashes went off everywhere. One reporter started grilling her about the Sofia Volova stabbing that happened 2 hours ago, demanding a comment. Another reporter waved a recorder and tried to get spicy, saying the whole country was buzzing about the video and asking if Yoram did all this just to get famous and bring back her family's name. They kept poking, wanting to know why she even bothered applying to Blue Dragon Academy or what her plan was there. Our girl Yoram looked super pissed, but before she could say anything, our hero stepped in, telling the journalist to chill out and stop hounding an injured kid. But Yoram cut him off, basically telling him she had this. She snatched the recorder from one shocked reporter and repeated the question, making it clear she wasn't scared. Then, with the creepiest smile ever, she stared at all those cameras and told everyone exactly what she wanted. She want, sex. Damn bro, this kid has no filter. Then the scene jumped to a super chill place, with pink cherry blossoms falling in front of some fancy building that was their new dorm inside Lair. Gaul lost her mind with happiness, throwing her hands up and screaming like she just won the lottery. The girls walked into this huge living room, and she couldn't believe how big and nice the place was. Even Yoram was a little shocked, wondering out loud if they were really going to live somewhere so fancy. Gaul didn't waste any time. She darted straight for the stairs, yelling that the best room was hers. Of course, Yoram took off after her, screaming that she deserved the biggest room. Gaul hit the jackpot when she found this giant bedroom with a massive bed and a huge TV, sunlight streaming in everywhere. She started checking it out, saying she could totally use a room like this. But then Yoram barged in, cigarette dangling from her mouth, and announced that the balcony in this room was perfect for smoking. So, this was her room now. Gaul freaked out and protested, saying it wasn't fair because she got there first. Plus, Yoram said she wanted the big room next door. But Yoram just gave her this scary look, and Gaul folded right away, agreeing to take the room next door without another word. Bro, nobody wants to mess with this red girl when she gets that look. A bit later, Bomb showed up in another room carefully spraying water on a big blue egg, calling it her little one and rubbing it really gently. Our boy came in and asked her why she was spraying water everywhere. Bomb just smiled and explained that this was like teaching a baby before it was born, because blue dragons really love water. She kept talking about how to take care of the egg, and explained that when a dragon egg is about to hatch, the magic polymorph wears off, so it goes back to its real size. She then turned to him, stating that everybody in the lair couldn't stop talking about Yoram lately. Jite pulled up a video of Yoram's wild interview, showing her basically roasting the reporters. They laughed at the comments under the video. Some people thought she was super cool and brave, others were just making fun of her. But then Yoram's comment with the word sex popped up on the screen. Bomb freaked out and covered the egg's, ears, like she was trying to protect it from hearing bad words. That part cracked me up, bro. Anyway, the girls all hung out in the living room, and Yoram, stretched out on the sofa with her usual cold attitude, started complaining about how people were making a big deal over the word, even though everyone is born because of it. Gaul, looking totally lost, asked what sex even was. Yoram looked at her with a sly grin and asked if she really wanted to know. Then she got this evil smile and said it was time for some sex education. Gaul looked terrified and said she really did not want to hear anything like that, and even said her mom told her to avoid knowing too much. But Yoram just kept getting closer with that devilish look, saying Gaul couldn't refuse. She grabbed Gaul's head and started scaring her with nonsense while she screamed and tried to run away. In the end, she gave up and cried that she would listen, just to make it stop. She yelled to Jite, sobbing and begging him to save her from this crazy situation. Honestly, poor her. Meanwhile, both Jite and Bomb just don't care a bit about these two crazy dragons. The next day, early the next morning, Yoram was still dead asleep in her room. Gaul crashed in and screamed about an emergency. Yoram woke up totally pissed, swearing and asking what the hell was so important at this hour, since she'd been up all night. Gaul then asked if she had been watching weird stuff again. Yoram just smirked and said she spent the night watching pornos, which made Gaul lose it. She just dragged Yoram down the stairs, saying there was no time for jokes. Yoram grumbled that if this wasn't serious, someone was going to die. Downstairs, everyone was gathered, and Yoram looked bored, asking what was going on. Bomb was sitting next to the big egg and told them, sounding super tense, that Gyul was about to be hatched. All eyes turned to the egg, which was starting to crack and glow, and Gal screamed she was about to see a new life come into the world. But right then, our boy's face went dark. He started remembering a much sadder time. The last time he saw a birth of life, it was not a happy moment. His mind went back to a war zone, with a woman crying and begging him to save her baby. But his friend had to tell her it was too late. The child died right after being born. The hospital was destroyed and the world was a mess. There was nothing anyone could do. Our MC had this heavy look on his face, wishing things could have been different back then. Back in the present, he stood there with the three girls, wondering why that awful memory came back to him now. As everyone watched, the eggshell cracked open and a little blue claw poked out. A baby dragon's head popped up, eyes big and innocent. Bro, this dragon is so fucking cute. Damn. Bomb looked so happy and congratulated the new baby on her hatching. Gal's eyes were shining. They were about to explode with happiness. The little dragon cutely rubbed her own eye. She was Gyul, which means winter. Bomb then cleaned her up with a towel, and Jide asked if she learned that from somewhere. Well, Bomb said her mom used to do it for her. Well, except her mom licked her back then. She asked him if he wanted to hold the baby dragon, but he just quietly refused. Gal jumped up, super excited, and begged to hold the little one. So Bomb handed the dragon over carefully, warning Gal to be gentle because the baby's skin was still really soft. Gal promised she'd take good care of her and hug her tight. She then closed her eyes and said out loud that this feeling was super comforting and made her feel better. But then, out of nowhere, Gal's eye gave this shiny little naughty spark, and look at Yoram, asked if she wanted to hold Gyul too. Before Yoram even had time to think, she pushed Gyul right up into Yoram's face. Yoram totally freaked out, but Bomb just told her to chill out and be nicer. But Gyul just yawned all cute, not caring at all. While Yoram found herself stuck holding this wiggly little dragon and staring at her, quiet for once. Gal looked at Yoram with this proud smirk and asked if she got it now, if she finally understood why holding Gyul was so awesome. Yoram tried to act cool, but she admitted that, yeah, the kid was actually pretty cute. Then, out of nowhere, she spun around to our MC and pointed out that everyone else had held Gyul. So why was he being so weird and refusing? Gal jumped in, saying Gyul would be sad if Jite never held her. Our boy just stood there, all silent and mysterious. So, Yoram gave him this evil grin and started teasing him, saying he was acting all cool and untouchable, like he was too good for everyone. Then she threatened to throw Gyul at him and said he would have to catch her. Gal completely freaked out, screaming if Yoram was seriously about to do something that insane. Yoram's smile went full demon mode, and she announced that she had only one goal since she moved in here: to see if she could make Jite lose his cool for once. Then, bro, she actually wanted to throw the little Gyul right up into the air while Gal lost it, yelling her head off. But our boy Jite didn't even blink. He just caught the dragon baby with one hand, cool as a cucumber. Yoram groaned and said it was lame, since he didn't even react, while Gal muttered that her sister was definitely not a normal person. Bomb then came over, smiling like she was proud, and told him that he might as well pet Gyul now, since he was already holding her. Our hero looked nervous but reached out and touched Gyul's head with his finger, super gentle, asking if she was doing it right. Gyul looked super happy, and Gal started snapping photos on her smartwatch like she was the paparazzi, saying she had to save moments like this forever. Suddenly, Bomb suggested they take a group photo to celebrate Gyul's birth and came out holding a bright red rose, which made Gal's eyes pop wide open. Bomb winked and explained that she brought props just for pictures, surprising everyone with how serious she was about it. She then stuck the red rose behind Jite's ear and added a tiny blue flower to Gyul's head. Jite just stood there totally frozen, looking like he wanted to die while Yoram laughed at him, saying he looked ridiculous. But Bomb told him he actually looked good, and our protagonist begged them to just take the picture already. Yoram tried to get out of the photo, saying it was embarrassing, but Gal grabbed her and dragged her over anyway. Bro, this feels like a full family. I got a bit emotional all of a sudden. After they took the photo, our boy turned to Bomb and asked what's she gonna do to Gyul now. Bomb explained that she would teach Gyul a polymorph using magic transfer. Magic transfer is when you flow your mana into another person to teach them a spell. But there's a price. It would eat away the lifespan of the person teaching it. But Bomb was sure adult dragons like her, Yoram, and Gal had learned a spell called polymorph to turn back into human form in the world they used to live in. But little Gyul hadn't learned anything yet. She then lifted her up with a loving smile and said, "Dragons grow up super fast." So, she really wanted to give Gyul happy moments and good memories before she got too big for all this family stuff. Our MC nodded and said he'd help her with that anytime. So Bomb looked at him all pleading and asked if he could just stay by her side while she did the magic transfer for Gyul. Jite nodded, short and simple. So Bomb teased him for looking like a cold statue way over there and told him not to sit closer. He said, super serious, that he couldn't see any reason to sit so close, but Bomb wouldn't let it go. She argued that she might get super tired from the spell and drop Gyul, and then she'd feel so guilty if the little one hit her head. She was trying her best to make it all dramatic, but Jite just stared at her with his poker face. Finally, our poor MC gave in, sat down next to her, and said he really didn't have a choice, did he? The second he sat, Bomb could feel how Jite's shoulder was so hard, and suddenly whispered with red cheeks that it was hard. Jite asked, "What's hard?" And Bomb became so shy and quickly stammered that she meant the sofa was hard, not anything weird. Our boy just replied seriously that the sofa was made from expensive materials, so that was strange. To quickly change the topic, Bomb started doing her magic, a green glow swirling around her and little Gyul as the magic transfer began. She said she would begin the magic transfer now. Alright? So a few days went by after that whole magic transfer thing, and our girl Bomb was totally wiped out. Seriously, she was lying on the sofa like a fried fish, steam basically coming off her, and weakly saying she finally finished. Our boy, the MC, stood over her and praised her for all her hard work, and Bomb just said thanks. She tried to get up, but man, she was too tired, and walked like a zombie. She told our boy to make sure to feed little Gyul and burp her while she took a nap. Bomb also reminded him to wake her up if anything wild happened. But then, whoops, she almost passed out from being so tired. Lucky for her, our MC was ready and caught her before she could hit the floor, holding her up like it was nothing. He told her calmly that he would carry her to her room, and Bomb's face went red like a tomato. She got super flustered, not knowing where to look. Our boy just picked her up, princess style, and Bomb admitted, all shy, that it was kinda embarrassing to be carried like this. He just looked at her and teased that she still had energy to joke around. Bomb let out a tired little laugh and asked if she was heavy, maybe fishing for a compliment. Our guy, without missing a beat, told her she was light. Bomb seemed super touched that he could actually say something so nice. He put her down in bed, tucked her in, and before long Bomb was out cold, totally deep asleep. Our MC left the room real quiet and closed the door. But as soon as he stepped out, he noticed some weird blue mana ripples coming from the living room. Yeah, that sounded like trouble. He went to check and saw this crazy bright blue light filling the room. When the light died down, there was a little girl with long blue hair sitting on the sofa, staring at her hands like she had never seen them before. Jite just stood there for a second, then tried his best to welcome her. But you could tell he was a bit nervous too. Well, that was definitely a new problem for him. Right after that, the scene switched to the Lair District Police Station. Some cops were hanging around, talking about how our MC had been a total legend lately. Apparently, he caught a bunch of criminals by himself in just a few days. Stuff the supernatural crime team had been struggling with for months. One of his co-workers came up to him, super hyped, offering to treat him to a fancy meal because he was now the pride of the station. The girl cops dude jumped in, laughing, and said the man just wanted to use the company card anyway. The old cops tried to save face by saying he meant he'd pay for the second round. Whatever. But our MC? He just shook his head and turned them down, saying he had work to do. His coworker was low-key annoyed, waving his gold card around, probably feeling rejected. The group followed our boy outside, whispering about how he'd been leaving right on time every day. They started getting suspicious, thinking maybe he had a secret girlfriend. He shot them down with that stone-cold face of his. Zero emotion. As he walked away, one of them shouted that he trusted him and knew there was no girlfriend. Bro, I think the girl fell in love with him. After work, our MC was heading home. But plot twist, that wasn't even him at the station. The one working there was actually the Archduke of Shadow, a special skill Jite stole from some demon duke he'd killed in the past. This shadow copy was like his own clone, running errands while the real MC did his thing. The shadow copy walked toward a park and spotted his boss. It went up to him, super respectful, calling him master and confirming it was here because he'd been summoned. Then the shadow noticed something odd. Our MC was holding a little girl. Jide explained, all chill, that this was Gyul, and she'd just gotten a haircut and now could turn into her human form. A lady passing by saw them and smiled, saying the kid looked super cute and was so quiet and that the two of them looked good together as a family. The shadow copy, hoping to be helpful, offered to carry Gyul instead if our MC felt awkward. But suddenly, Gyul shot the shadow a death glare, looking at it like she wanted to fight. The shadow got totally freaked out. Jite refused the help and set Gyul gently on the ground, saying she could walk on her own, while the shadow just stared at her, probably reconsidering its life choices. The shadow asked why his boss was out here with Gyul anyway, and why Bomb, Yoram, or Gyul weren't babysitting instead. Jite explained that Bomb was stuck in bed with a fever from the magic transfer, and as for the other two, well, he remembered the chaos. Gael wanted to go shopping with her sister and wouldn't shut up, while Yoram was just sitting around smoking, refusing to talk to anybody. Our boy was like, yeah, these two are not ready for responsibility yet. The shadow nodded, finally understanding. Then our protagonist asked what was up, the real reason the shadow wanted to talk. He gave the shadow a hard stare, basically saying, don't pretend you don't know, because he could feel everything the shadow did. The shadow looked away, nervous, explaining that it wasn't complaining or anything, but it was kind of confused about its new life. All its other masters just made it do serious stuff, killing, conquering, scaring people. But now, it was just living a normal, boring life, which was kind of hard for a monster like it to get used to. The shadow apologized if it sounded disrespectful. Our MC reassured it, saying, hey, it was normal to think about this kind of stuff, since it was a real being that had desire. He promised that a bigger mission was coming, but for now, he ordered the shadow to just keep acting normal at work and blend in. Before heading out, he told the shadow that the other cops were bummed about getting rejected and ordered it to go out for drinks with them, since it'd be leaving soon anyway. The shadow bowed super respectfully, promised to do it, and went off to follow orders. After the shadows were gone, Jite spotted a mother and her kid looking super happy. The kid was all smiles, hugging her new doll and telling her mom she was the best. Our MC noticed Gyul staring at that scene like she couldn't look away, and he guessed that maybe, deep down, she really wanted a doll herself. He thought if he had known earlier, he would have just bought her one already. The poor girl just kept staring, so hard that even he could feel what she wanted without her saying a word. So, our boy asked if she wanted a doll. Gyul's eyes went wide, like he'd just read her mind or something. Instead of just going to a store, our MC reached up and opened some kind of dark slice in the air. Yeah, just a casual portal, and pulled out a big blue teddy bear. He told her it was a bit different from the one the other kid had, but hey, close enough. Gyul took the bear. And man, it was almost as big as she was. Her cheeks went all red, and you could tell she was both shy and super happy, just looking at that teddy. He asked her if she liked it, probably expecting her to give a little nod or a hug. But nope, she just put the giant bear on the ground and started walking away with those tiny steps, walking to our MC standing there, confused out of his mind. Seriously, what was up with that? Maybe she was angry, or maybe she just didn't like the gift. He caught up and scooped her up in his arms, thinking maybe the bear wasn't enough, and wondering what else he should have done. He told her he didn't have any more gifts, but she just reached out and gently touched his cheek, then rested her forehead against his. Our MC was totally thrown off by this. Why was she acting like that? He started wondering if maybe Gyul thought magic transference was the same as showing affection. Maybe she was just trying to say she liked him or something. But his mind started drifting to all the dark stuff. Wars, blood, the times he fought monsters and dragons, all the violence from his past lives. Those memories were rough. But then he snapped back to the moment and met Gyul's innocent eyes. That look from her made him calm right down, and he actually smiled for once. The baby smiled back, and the two of them just walked together under the sunset, holding hands like a real family, with her dragging her huge teddy behind her. It was kind of adorable, not gonna lie. But then our boy stopped suddenly, letting out a breath like he just sensed someone nearby. Out of nowhere, Gyul popped up, waving and running over to them. She was super hyped, gave Gyul a big hug, and told the MC she'd just been to the shopping district. She touched her head with the little girl and hinted that Gyul was really happy and liked him because she'd just gotten a doll. Our MC looked shocked and asked Gyul if she could read Gyul's mind. Gyul laughed and explained that dragons could send feelings and thoughts, not just magic, just by touching skin. She said touching foreheads was the best way to do it. That made our MC realize Gyul's little forehead move was her way of showing her feelings. Dude had no idea. Gyul teased him about not knowing everything, which, honestly, he kinda deserved. Then he noticed she was carrying a huge bag and asked her about it. She grinned and pulled out a brand new guitar, saying she got it so she could share her feelings without needing to touch anyone. She struck a pose, asking if she looked like a real singer, and then started jamming and singing right there in the street. She promised she was going to work super hard at this. While she played, Jide got lost in more old memories. He remembered a guitar on the floor, medical gear and syringes, and Gyul sitting there totally wrecked, blood on her hands and empty bottles everywhere. Yeah, that was a bad memory. He looked at her now, pressing the strings even though her fingers were hurt. Smoke actually rising from her fingertips. Yeah, this was too exaggerated. Anyway, he saw her hand trembling and told her not to overdo it, that she should take it easy. Gyul stared at him, surprised he was worried. She asked why, but he just told her to slow down as he started walking away with Gyul. Gyul said she really wanted to do her best, but our MC switched the topic and asked if Bomb had woken up yet. She shook her head, looking kind of sad, and said Bomb was still sleeping with a fever because she'd pushed herself with all that magic. He then asked about Yoram, and she thought for a second, saying Yoram hadn't left her room all day. She was binge-watching dramas and totally addicted. Our boy actually saw that as a good thing. Better Yoram obsessing over shows than picking fights outside, he thought. Well, 100% valid, bro. That redhead has too much stamina. When they got home, Jite told Gail to wash her hands, and Gail agreed, taking her along. Just as Gail was wondering if Bomb was awake yet, stuff got real. Out of nowhere, our MC slammed his hand down on her shoulder, his whole vibe changing in an instant. He got super serious and ordered Gayul to grab Gayul and go to their room, telling her not to come out until he said so. Gayul was freaked out by how intense he sounded and asked what was happening, but he just repeated, "Go, now." She got scared, nodded fast, and pulled Gyeol away to the room. Our MC walked over and slowly opened Bomb's door. His face went dark the second he saw inside. The room was packed with knights in full armor, their eyes glowing in the shadows, all standing around the bed where Bomb was sleeping. One of them turned and asked our MC, in a cold voice, if he was the one who did this to the Green Dragon. These were no regular guys. These were the guardians, knights, and slaves that dragons used as their own personal bodyguards, monsters or humans trapped by crazy strong magic and made to serve the dragons for life. Some of them were even super elite, only protecting the baby dragons when they ventured out for fun. Right away, he figured the knight must have used some sleep magic on her. But before he could even say anything, this armored dude stomped the floor and stormed over, demanding to know what our MC had done to the Green Dragon. Now, Jite wasn't about to just take that. He fired right back, scolding the knight for not introducing himself when barging into someone else's home. Like, manners, bro? Ever heard of them? But the knight just started acting all high and mighty, saying that asking questions was only for the strong, and that our MC was way out of his league. Then, just to flex, the guy let out this insane dark energy called Black Heart, making the vibe in the room go from tense to straight up terrifying. The knight basically declared he was the only one allowed to ask questions here, calling our boy a lowly human. Yikes, you're gonna die soon. But somehow, Jite was cool as ice. The knight gave one last warning, still demanding to know what happened to the green. Instead of getting rattled, our MC chilled out a little and just told him the truth. A blue dragon had been born, and the green was wiped out from teaching the baby dragon how to use polymorph and doing a magic transfer. That only made the knight glare even harder. He wanted to know who the heck our MC thought he was, standing there like a boss. But Jite just answered all calm and confident, saying he was their guardian. The knight actually laughed at that, like he couldn't believe a regular human would even think of protecting dragons. He mocked our boy, asking if he even understood who these dragons really were. But Jite just gave him a sharp look and said he knew exactly what kind of beings they were, and that's why he had a question for the knights. Then our boy dropped the bomb. He asked why they showed up so early, since they were supposed to be scattered far away in some dimensional rift. The knights were totally stunned, looking at each other like, how did this random human know about that? Their leader realized something was way off, because this dude knew way more than he should. The leader tried to play it cool, saying they were the guardians of the children and keepers of history. He admitted our MC had taken care of the dragons for them, but then said he didn't trust him one bit, hinting that letting him live could be a problem. Yeah, you guys are done. Our boy just suggested they talk it out, but the knight wasn't having it. He swung his huge sword from above, saying he'd make it quick so Jite wouldn't even feel pain. But here's where it got insane. There was a huge boom and purple energy everywhere, but our MC didn't even flinch. The leader's big fancy sword, called Horse Sword, got blocked like it was nothing, because Jite pulled out his own SS rank formless sword. Then, bam, lightning fast. Our boy cut off the leader's hand like it was no big deal. The leader hit the ground, screaming in pain, and one of the other knights called him a loser for falling for such a simple move. The rest of the knights lost it, shouting they'd take the MC down, and charged in with swords and spears from every direction. But they didn't stand a chance. Suddenly, the leader started stammering, realizing this human was way scarier than he thought. Next thing they knew, the knights were flying through the air like broken toys, their armor and weapons smashed to bits. When the dust settled, our MC was just standing there in the wreckage, looking like a total boss, surrounded by what used to be a squad of so-called guardians. The leader, still on the floor, looked up at our MC, shaking with fear. In his head, he admitted he should have trusted his gut. No normal human could do any of this. He realized too late that Jite was on a whole different level, basically calling him an untouchable monster. Our boy stared down at him with those dark, scary eyes and started walking over. He reminded the knight that he'd wanted to talk in the first place. The leader, trembling, asked if this world was under Jite's rule now, but our MC cut him off fast, telling him to just answer the question. How did the knights even get here? Since there was supposed to be a dimensional issue, the leader finally gave in. He explained that there was a dimensional distortion. Their master tried to open a dimensional gate from the nest to this world, but something went wrong and they all got kicked out randomly. Our MC asked him to explain exactly what that distortion was. The knight said he didn't know every detail, but remembered their master once mentioned something called the horizon of providence. He said this distortion was a side effect from the power of that horizon, like space itself was twisting around it. Now, this was news to our MC. In all his past lives, he'd never heard of the horizon of providence. He started thinking something was off. This time regression was full of weird surprises. He even realized this was the first time a guardian ever came looking for the green dragon right away. So, he pressed him again, asking what the horizon of providence had to do with their arrival. Did it help them show up here? The knight said yes. A will beyond the horizon of providence was what guided them. That really caught our MC's attention. The knight said he felt this will, leading him through the dimensional mess, telling him exactly where to go to find the baby dragons. Our MC didn't trust any of this, so he decided to check for himself. He reached out and grabbed the knight's helmet, saying he needed to confirm something, and told the knight to look him in the eyes. Then, our MC turned on his SS rank Eyes of Balance, one of those crazy powers he stole from a demon archduke. Those eyes could tell the truth from a lie, and they showed him that the knight was, in fact, telling the truth. He suddenly remembered how he spent so much time wiping out every possible threat, doing everything he could to make sure weird stuff like this never happened. But here he was, facing another unknown problem, and it was driving him nuts. Seriously, our MC was pissed. Like, what the hell? Why did these unknown things keep showing up no matter how hard he worked? Not letting it go, he asked the knight about the thing hiding behind the horizon. The knight said the will back there felt nasty, like someone holding a serious grudge. It felt more like a curse than anything else. And he even guessed that maybe it was because he carried some weird essence that came from the green dragon's power. Suddenly, Jite just snapped. He slammed the knight with a solid hit out of nowhere, sending the poor guy crashing down and groaning on the ground. As the knight struggled, our MC ripped out his chest and noticed something weird. A strange light started glowing from the knight's armor. Right then, the authority of the vintage clock jumped into action, trying to figure out what was messing up the flow of time. Golden chains started wrapping around the knight, and the energy felt super intense. The chains even turned into a glowing ball, basically showing the world how much it hated things that didn't belong in the original timeline. Then, the clock, cold as ever, announced that from now on, anything coming from outside the timeline, or messing around with its own separate timeline was going to be put under the microscope. It would be seriously classified as the enemy. Our MC looked down at the glowing hourglass that had showed up in his hand. He realized the clock, his big powerful tool for turning back time, was suddenly starting to do things on its own. For all his life, the only time this EX skill activated was when he regressed. But for now, this skill suddenly activated again. He couldn't do anything about it, so he decided to just wait it out as the clock faded away. The other knights started healing and whispering, pretty freaked out. They wondered out loud what the hell happened before. But our MC wasn't about to let his guard down. He turned to all of them with his weapon ready and asked what their plan was. He told them he was already taking care of the dragons, so they didn't need to stick around. Plus, he pointed out that the magic binding them to the dragons, thanks to that weird dimensional mess, was probably gone. So honestly, there was no real reason for them to stay. The knights looked at him, shocked, and asked if he was really just going to let them leave. But our MC was cold as ice. He said he didn't care, as long as they kept out of trouble. After a second, the knights agreed and started leaving one by one. But then, the knight leader, still pretty beat up, suddenly stood up, swaying on his feet. He said he couldn't leave, and everyone went quiet. Jide was surprised and asked him why. The knight explained that he was the guy in charge of protecting the flow of causality, or whatever. But before he could finish, our MC just decked him right in the face, sending him straight back to the ground. Not done, he put his foot on the guy's chest and asked again, all threatening, if he was really not going to leave. But the knight, even though he was probably in a ton of pain, kept saying he couldn't go. So, our MC leaned in hard, putting all his weight on the knight's chest while the poor guy screamed. He asked again, this time letting his cold side show. Was the guy really not leaving? But the knight, still gasping for air, just repeated that he couldn't go. His eyes were actually glowing under that helmet, and he said he just couldn't leave or abandon the dragons. Our MC looked over at the other knights in the back. One of them explained that their leader wouldn't listen, no matter what. Another called him slow and kind of an idiot for not taking the chance for freedom. So, they shrugged and peaced out, letting him do his thing. Our boy stood there for a second, thinking about it all. Then he let out a sigh and agreed to just accept the situation. He turned back to the knight, who was still on the ground, and said that, yeah, you probably do need this kind of stubbornness to be a real guardian. Then, just like that, he killed the rest of the knights, leaving only this guy behind. The knight leader was shocked, asking if our MC had really just been testing them, but Jite flat out denied it, keeping calm and cool. He admitted this knight was definitely different from the others and decided to ask what was making him so desperate to stay with the Green Dragon. The knight answered, kneeling in full armor, that he'd always been loyal to the Green Dragon clan. Our MC respected his loyalty, but pointed out that, honestly, he himself was way stronger, so what could the knight really do as a guardian? Then, out of nowhere, he actually smiled a little and told the guy he had a perfect job for him. Scene change, now we're in the hall, and the girls, Yoram, Gal, and Gyeol, are all hanging out. Our MC told the knight to greet everyone. He introduced the knight as the new janitor, while the poor dude just stood there, totally stunned, dressed in his full armor and a bright pink kitchen apron. Bro, he looked ridiculous. Look at how shocked this cool-looking guy is to be pointed out as the new janitor slave. Next thing you know, the knight is in the kitchen, washing dishes with pink rubber gloves on, sighing like his soul had left his body. He remembered confronting our MC about this, like, what the hell did being a janitor have to do with protecting dragons? He grumbled that he didn't get it at all and asked if this was just some kind of joke. But our boy just gave him the cold shoulder again, saying he already had dragon security covered and he'd made this job special so the knight could stay. Then he gave him a look so scary it could kill, warning him that if he couldn't even handle janitor work, he'd wipe him out for real. No pressure, right? So, the knight went back to scrubbing dishes, looking miserable and asking himself how he went from a big deal knight commander to the world's saddest dishwasher. Then, Bomb walked into the kitchen, wearing comfy clothes, and asked if he was the guardian from Khalifa. The knight got all flustered and freaked out, asking if she was okay, calling her Lady Green before catching himself. She smiled and told him it was just a small cold. He wanted to know why she came to the kitchen, and she said she'd heard he was the new janitor. She even told him the apron suited him, which made the poor guy freeze in embarrassment. With a soft little smile, she asked him to take care of them from now on as Mr. Janitor. That must have hit him hard, because he suddenly got super pumped and actually crushed a plate in his hand, swearing up and down that he'd make sure her hands never had to touch water and she could count on him for anything. Bomb just looked at the broken plate on the floor and told him, super calm, that those plates were really expensive. Man, what a way to start a new job. The next morning, Gyeol showed up trying on all sorts of outfits. One minute she was a blue bear, the next she was rocking a school uniform with a bright yellow bag, and then she went total goth with a black dress. Gal was hanging around snapping 100 photos with her smartwatch, practically shaking from excitement because, bro, she thought Gyeol was the cutest thing ever. While she was busy fangirling, she asked Bomb how she managed to get those amazing outfits for the girl. Bomb, feeling super proud of herself, said she ordered the clothes right after she got better. Then she turned to Gyeol, wanting to know if the little one liked them. Gyeol hugged her blue teddy bear so tight you'd think it was the last bear on earth, swaying back and forth all shy with this huge grin. It was obvious, even to Gal, that Gyeol was in love with dressing up, even if she tried to hide that smile. Then, out of nowhere, Gal turned to the new janitor, yeah, the knight dude, and asked which outfit looked the best on her sister. The knight, clearly trying to keep everyone happy, said Gyeol looked beautiful no matter what she wore. Gal was impressed and started teasing him about being such a smooth talker. I mean, not bad for a guy who was scrubbing glass yesterday. Meanwhile, Jitae just watched quietly in the background, looking at them. Suddenly, our MC dropped a bomb on Gal, pointing out that she was still playing the guitar because of her finger wound. This totally freaked her out. She tried to play it cool, saying she only played a little, but everyone could tell she was sweating. Bomb, while combing Gyeol's hair, gently scolded Jitae for being too harsh and explained that, come on, Gal just loved music. Jitae insisted he wasn't being mean, but then switched gears and asked where Yoram was, guessing she was still holed up in her room watching TV dramas. The janitor jumped in, looking all awkward, and explained that he'd tried to clean Yoram's room earlier, but got kicked out. He looked genuinely worried and said she seemed really pale and sickly. He remembered her straight up booting him out, so Bomb gave a strained smile and guessed Yoram probably just stayed up all night again. Our MC didn't say much, but you could tell he wasn't happy. He decided to check it out himself, so he opened Yoram's door, and bro, it was like walking into a dumpster fire. There was smoke in the air, cigarette butts everywhere, and empty drink cans all over the floor. Yoram was sitting there, looking rough, lounging in comfy clothes with a drink in hand and munching on dried squid. She barely looked at him, asking if he was just there to see if she was still breathing. Jide noticed a giant TV screen in front of her and asked if she watched this show all the time. She said yeah, and when he asked if she watched anything else, she said no. Right then, the show flashed to a scene with knights, and Yoram started complaining loud enough for the neighbors to hear about how terrible Season 7 was and how the fighting in it made no sense. Jitae told her maybe she should just stop watching, but she just shot back with a sarcastic comment, basically calling him a genius for that idea. He wasn't joking around though, and told her seriously to come out because he wanted to talk. That actually surprised her. Next thing everyone knew, Jitae gathered the whole squad in the living room, sitting there with Gyol in his lap, telling everyone there was going to be a deep cleaning session, right now. The three girls and the night janitor lined up on the couch, looking like they were about to get sentenced. Gyol was the first to freak out, asking why Jitae suddenly decided to become Mr. Clean. Jitae let them have it, saying, "Look, even if you aren't human, you have to live like one while you're on Earth." He called out Yoram and Gyol specifically for their nasty rooms. Gyol lost it, asking when he'd even been in her room, and tried to say her mom always told her not to go into someone else's nest without permission. Bomb smirked and said, "Didn't your mom also tell you to clean your room before living in it?" Gyol stammered and yelled that was beside the point. Our hero didn't care. He handed out cleaning orders like a drill sergeant, telling the janitor to handle the living room and kitchen, and making each girl clean her own room. Yoram groaned so loud it probably shook the walls, asking why they needed to clean when they already had a janitor. Then Yoram, being a total troll, wiped her gross finger on Gall's face and said she'd made that dirt especially for her. Gall shot her a look like she wanted to punch her and shrieked like she'd been hit by acid, jumped up, and said she hated dirty stuff. Yoram pointed and laughed, saying it was hilarious that Gall hated filth but still had a filthy room. Well, that makes sense. Anyway, getting bored, Yoram tried to ditch, telling the knight to clean her room because she was headed out to exercise. The janitor actually agreed, looking like a kicked puppy. Bomb tried to sneak out too, saying she'd already cleaned yesterday and had to go buy stuff for dinner, leaving Gall alone on the couch crying about how the family had grown and she had to work harder. Our MC just nodded and let Bomb go. But as soon as Bomb offered to cook, Jitae's whole face changed. He remembered last time, when she put fish in purple rice and basically summoned a food disaster. He looked traumatized, but the girl only smiled and asked if he wanted anything special. The poor guy just told her to make whatever she liked, probably hoping he'd survive dinner. Then the scene jumped to Yoram's room, which looked like a garbage dump. The janitor stood there clutching his broom, his soul almost leaving his body from the shock. He actually thought the demon world was nicer than this mess, and finally understood why Yoram looked like a zombie. He noticed a pot in the room, but instead of a plant, it was jam-packed with cigarette butts. The poor guy wondered if she was trying to poison herself on purpose or something. He started cleaning, grabbing a trash bag and chucking bottles and cans inside. But suddenly, Jitae's shadow clone showed up in a police uniform, stopping him with a death glare. The clone pointed at the metal can in his hand, then started giving him a full lecture about recycling, metal cans separate from plastic, bro. He made it clear that even in Ascalifa, where the knight was from, it must be pretty backwards if they didn't know about recycling. Man, our janitor had a rough day. Anyway, looking at Jitae in front of him, that's when the poor janitor started to notice something weird. There was this heavy aura in the room, like demon world energy, coming from the guy next to him. He finally realized, holy hell, this wasn't even the real Jitae. This was just a copy, but it felt so intense that anyone could have believed it was the real deal. Suddenly, the copy glared at the janitor and asked why he was just standing there and if he planned to keep spacing out all night. Our poor janitor started shaking, bowing his head, and apologizing right away. Even if this copy had scary vibes, he still hates this fake-ass thing trying to be the real boss. Then, out of nowhere, the actual Jitae opened the door and walked in. He caught his shadow clone in the middle of roasting the janitor. The clone got a little awkward but tried to play it cool, saying he was just giving advice because the janitor was a total slacker with no skills. Seriously, this clone had zero chill. But the real Jitae just told his copy to knock it off and help clean. He said he'd called in backup because there was no way one person could handle the mess in Yoram's room alone. Teamwork time, whether the clone liked it or not. Hearing that, the janitor actually got blessed. He was so happy that this brat clone had the same bad luck as him. So, the deep cleaning campaign started for real. While everyone else was doing their thing, Yoram out exercising, Bomb off buying groceries, Gall and Gyol playing together, the poor shadow, and the janitor teamed up to fight the mountain of trash. And bro, they worked at it until the sun went down. After all that effort, the copy stood in front of Jitae, who was sitting behind his desk, and announced that the mission was a total success. Our boy actually praised his clone for once. Yeah, miracles can happen. Then he flipped his computer around and pulled up a map with a red dot on Moscow, Russia. He told the copy that some mage group called Invisibility was up to no good over there, cooking up weird experiments on transcendent-type mages. There were even creepy pics of test tubes and messed-up humans. Jite gave the command straight. The copy had to finish police duty this week, then head straight to Russia and find someone called Prototype X. The copy didn't even hesitate, promising to get ready right away. Just as Jite finished giving out missions, the door swung open, and Bomb popped in with a massive smile, saying she was back. The janitor greeted her, and Gall stared at the pile of groceries like she saw a mountain, asking Bomb why she'd bought so much. Bomb was super cheerful about it, saying the family had grown, so obviously they needed more food. The clone tried to sneak out now that Bomb was home, but Jide suddenly grabbed its shoulder with a look that meant serious business. He told the copy to swap clothes with him. Right now, no arguments. Cut to the dinner table, and Bomb was shouting for everyone to eat. The food, though? It was a total nightmare. Purple soup belching weird smoke with whole fish sticking out like spears. The girls actually dug in. Gall was amazed, saying the taste was exactly like what they ate back in Ascalifa, and Yoram agreed it wasn't bad. Gall wished the janitor could join them, but Yoram called her an idiot since, duh, the guy had no mouth under that helmet. Meanwhile, the poor shadow copy sat there in home clothes, sweating buckets, staring at the scary dish. He realized the awful truth. His master had swapped with him just so he wouldn't have to eat this disaster dinner. Bro, tough break for the clone. And where was the real Jite? Yes, he was outside in the garden, dressed all fancy, enjoying the quiet darkness. He totally dodged the bullet and left his poor shadow to suffer through Bomb's cooking again. That's cold, man. The next day, in a creepy old factory near Lair, our boy was wrecking this place. It was basically a horror show. Bodies everywhere, the floor all bloody, and the only sound was some demon screaming his lungs out. This demon, face all covered in blood, started losing his mind. He kept yelling that Jite was going to pay for this, and he wanted to know if he had any clue who was backing him. But Jite just stood there, acting like a cold-hearted machine. Then, without even blinking, he chopped the dude's hands clean off, making him hit the ground so hard it was like watching a rag doll. Damn, that had to hurt. He then grabbed the guy by the hair and told him, super chill, that he knew exactly who this famous supporter was. He even called him out, Wei Yan, the fancy professor at Blue Dragon Dorms, or as the demon world likes to say, the demon of the Invisibility Organization. With zero hesitation, he slammed his blade right into the demon's neck. He said he wanted to know what Wei Yan was really planning. Then, he activated his super overpowered Eyes of Balance skill, basically telling the demon that lies weren't going to work on him at all. He demanded the truth. No games. That demon? He got so scared his whole face changed. He stuttered and spilled that he honestly didn't know all the details, but apparently, Wei Yan had promised him that if the plan pulled through in 3 months, he'd get chosen for something called a seat. This seat thing was a big deal. A spot for the top 4 demons in the Invisibility Gang. If you grabbed one, you got your own army and crazy disaster-level power. Even our MC thought that was weird, since in every single past life, Wei Yan never even got close to a seat, and he definitely shouldn't have enough power for this kind of move right now. Just then, his fancy vintage clock power got weird and activated again. It felt like some evil intent was coming from way beyond what normal people can see. The clock tried tracking down whatever was messing with the laws of fate. It locked in hard on one name, Demon Wei Yan. The system even popped up a big warning, saying someone was interfering from outside the timeline and they hated the whole time regression thing. Turns out, Wei Yan somehow broke out of the normal cycle. He became a total glitch in the world, keeping all his best skills from every past life. That's not just cheating, bro. That's next-level boss hacking. Jite realized this was seriously dangerous territory. So first those Guardian freaks, now this Wei Yan guy? The universe really wanted to mess with him. Back to the demon on the floor. Now he was begging for his life, swearing that was all he knew. He told our protagonist to let him live and he'd find more info, and even threw in some sob story about his sick mom at home. As if our MC was buying any of that. He just zapped him with a lightning strike, sending his head flying. He stared down at the corpse with those scary glowing eyes, remembering how he'd warned the guy lying was useless anyway. He then used his incineration skill to turn the body into ashes, thinking that even if the guy was honest, he was never getting out of here alive. Destiny sucks sometimes. After that, he walked toward the city again, just thinking things over. He figured for Wei Yan's plan to be this big, it had to be connected to Lair. He remembered how Wei Yan wanted Yoram as the student rep at the year-end banquet, so he started piecing it all together. That event? Total red flag. Suddenly, from a distance, he could see Bomb and Gyol doing their thing. 2 girls were standing in front of them, totally fangirling over Gyol and calling her adorable. One of them asked for the little kid's name, and Bomb, always smiling, said she was Yu Gyol. The girls gushed about how the name was cute and matched her hair, then asked how old she was. But suddenly they noticed Jite standing behind them. The dude had his scary aura turned all the way up, then asked, super cold, if the girls needed anything from the kid. Seeing how creepy our protagonist is, they freaked and ran off so fast you'd think they saw a ghost. Jitae then sat next to Bomb on the bench. She asked where he'd been all day, and he just stared straight ahead, saying he had business. She started chatting, saying she wished she could have spent more time with Gyeol since she'd been sick all day, and pointed out Gyeol by the fountain. She sighed about how school started tomorrow, so there wouldn't be much playtime anymore. Then grinned and asked Jitae if they looked like a real family now. She even started assigning roles, Gyeol as the daughter, Bomb as the mom, and of course, that left Jitae as the dad. She shot him a shy, almost flirty look, but our MC just stared back with his classic deadpan face. Bomb laughed, saying she was just joking, and asked why he was always so serious. Our boy told her that if she was going to talk nonsense, she should just go home. Bomb just smiled quietly, watching him carry Gyeol away, and whispered that playing really was fun. Next morning, energy was off the charts. Students were heading to the academy under a bright, sunny sky. Gal was sprinting with a piece of toast hanging from her mouth, looking like she was living her best anime life, screaming about how happy she was to finally go to school. Bomb was right there with her, asking what classes she picked and hoping they could go together. Suddenly, Bomb asked about the toast in her mouth since Gal already had breakfast. Gal giggled and explained that Bomb didn't get it. She'd heard that if you run to school with toast in your mouth and crash into someone at a corner, you'll meet your destined partner. In her head, she even imagined bumping into some super handsome dragon dude. Girl was living in a fantasy. But hey, nothing wrong with aiming high. But somehow, instead of crashing with a handsome guy, bam, she crashed right into Yoram, who was standing there with this sly little smirk. She leaned in and whispered that it was such a coincidence to meet here, which totally freaked Gal out. Then Yoram, being her usual troll self, asked if this meant she was Gal's destined partner. Our poor Gal nearly screamed, reminding her she was a girl. But Yoram just laughed and said she had seen on American TV that girls do that too. Bro, she really didn't care about the rules. Then, out of nowhere, she snatched the piece of toast out of Gal's mouth and chomped down on it herself. Gal looked like her whole world just ended, like toast betrayal level 100. Switching gears, Yoram asked where the old man Jitae had gone. Bomb pointed out that he said he would watch their classes, but went to the faculty office first. Then Yoram, with a sneaky look, wondered out loud if maybe he was off meeting a woman since he didn't come home last night. That made Bomb freeze up hard. She started sweating bullets and tried to deny it, stuttering about how that couldn't be true. Gal just stared at her, super worried, and asked if Bomb was sick because she was sweating like a pig. Then, all of a sudden, Gal noticed bright camera flashes and a crowd building up. Yoram squinted and realized it was a bunch of journalists trying to get photos of the famous newbie students. As all three girls stood together, some students started whispering and pointing at Yoram, calling her the girl who destroyed Sophia and said that crazy stuff in her last test. The journalists spotted Yoram's red hair and rushed in like crazy, shouting for her to look their way and give a comment. They shoved microphones in her face, asking questions from every direction. Gal just stared at the mob, totally freaked out and wondering what the hell was wrong with these people. Yoram had enough, like, really enough. She let out this insane, thunderous roar for everyone to shut it, scaring the crowd silent in 2 seconds flat. Then she glared at the journalists, called them scum, and told them her last answer should have been enough. If anyone wanted to step up, she was more than ready, holding up her finger and grinning like a savage. Dude. Everyone took a big step back. Nobody was about to mess with that. Meanwhile, back at home, Gyeol was sitting alone on the floor, cuddling her doll and staring at the door like waiting for something fun to happen. The janitor poked his head in, already regretting his whole life. He remembered Jitae's warning before leaving. The kids were at school. He wouldn't be home either. And the janitor had to watch the baby dragon all by himself today. You could just see the panic on this guy's face. This was way harder than scrubbing toilets. And he had zero clue how to deal with a kid. He tried to act chill, called her Miss Gyeol, and suggested she wait somewhere comfy until everyone got back. Gule just stared at him for a second, then turned her head away like he didn't even exist. Oof. The janitor started sweating so much it was a miracle his helmet didn't slide off. He had no idea what to do, so he ran off to clean something just to escape the weird tension. But he gave it another shot. Coming back with a new plan, he asked super gently if she wanted to read a picture book together. That actually got Gyeol's eyes shining, finally. Something good. The janitor felt a little better and sat down on the floor in front of her, holding up a book called Dad is a Fairy. There was this cute drawing on the cover of a dad and daughter with fairy wings. He started reading, talking about how long ago, deep in the forest, Dolsun and her dad lived together. But this guy's brain was straight up broken from too much action. He imagined the forest as some nightmare monster island, not a magical place. He then read that the dad would tell Dolsun old stories every night, but then he imagined those stories were about bloody wars. He even decided, super serious, that the little girl must be a war maniac like him. Hearing that, Gyul just stared at him, confused, probably thinking this dude was insane. He kept reading about how one morning, Dolsun woke up, and her dad was gone. Instead of thinking he went to buy milk or something, the janitor immediately pictured the dad hunting for a new wife, like a prisoner of war situation, complete with dramatic kidnapping. He even said Dolsun should be happy about getting a new mom, while in his mind the woman was screaming in terror. Bro, that's not how fairy tales work! He turned to Gyul to talk about Dolsun, but all he got was Gyul shooting him the deadliest glare a kid could give. There was this dark vibe around her, and the janitor was totally confused, asking if she didn't like the story. Of course, dude. You are literally a psychopath. Our poor Gyul must be so sad. Well, Gyul didn't say a word. She just pointed her little finger at the corner of the room, like telling him to just shut up and don't bother her. The janitor looked away, totally lost. And then, she lay down on the floor, happily humming and staring at the storybook, while the janitor curled up in the corner, looking like his soul just left his body. That poor guy. Babysitting was not his calling. Meanwhile, at the academy, this super shiny black car rolled up. The driver jumped out to open the door, and out came a girl looking like she belonged in a magazine, not a training ground. This was Gong Juhai. Next in line for the whole Gong clan? Yeah, one of the 3 big sword-fighting families in Korea. But right now, all she cared about was her skin. The girl was complaining, putting on makeup and saying sword training sucked because it made her sweat, and sweat totally messed up her foundation. Girl had priorities. Looking around, she saw a huge mob of reporters and photographers near the entrance. Right away, she convinced herself they must be here for her. She even got all amazed, thinking maybe her fame was that serious. Her assistant, this nervous guy named Kim, tried to bring her back to earth, saying he really didn't think those cameras were for her. Juhai just spun around, staring at him like he'd insulted her whole family and demanded what he just said. She started fuming and wanted to know who else could possibly be interesting enough for the press to camp out here. Without waiting for an answer, she just shoved a photographer aside and marched in like she owned the place. And what did she see? Right in front of her, Gall and Yoram had just showed up. Juhai admitted, even to herself, that both girls were kinda jaw-dropping, like, unfairly pretty. But then she noticed something even crazier. Yoram was just chilling on top of a student, using him as a human chair while he crawled like a simp. Meanwhile, Gall couldn't believe what she was seeing and asked why in the world this was happening. Yoram, not even blinking, told her that the student wanted it. The student, dude, looked like a trembling puppy, nodded all excited saying he was her fan and didn't mind at all. Yoram just shot him a look, said his words were garbage, and kept acting like this was all normal. Right away, she took over the whole press crowd, saying she'd let each journalist ask just one question and threatening to leave if they didn't behave. Everyone got dead quiet, not wanting to test her. She pointed at a guy in a hat, and this dude went off introducing himself as someone from Taiwan TV, but Yoram cut him off in a split second for talking too much and moved to the next. That journalist just stood there, mouth open, not even getting his question out. Next, a French reporter asked how it felt to be the center of attention in the supernatural world lately. Yoram, not even caring, picked her nose and said it felt dirty, then moved on. Someone else asked about her fan club. Yoram stomped her foot hard on top of her human chair and called the fans a bunch of crazies. Ouch. Then a chubby journalist with glasses stepped up. He wanted to know what Yoram meant by those wild words she yelled at the Blue Dragon dorm interview. She looked him up and down in disgust, saying he already knew and even mocked his stink. But this guy wasn't giving up, asking why she chose those dirty words specifically. He tried to get all sly, hinting maybe there was something else behind it. Yoram leaned in real close with this dangerous smile and whispered if he wanted to do it with her. Now, the dude was totally confused and freaked out. Her face turned sharp, and she told him he knew she was just joking and asked why he was still acting so annoying. But this journalist wasn't scared. He showed his teeth and said journalism was a filthy business, and hinted that if she played nice, he could be nice too. That's when she grabbed his shirt, warning him her patience was running out, but Gall tried to calm her down, yet nobody was listening. The journalist, seeing the camera still recording, decided to push things further. He whispered that he'd just write whatever he wanted if she stayed stubborn. He even threatened to publish a headline saying she asked to sleep with him, telling her to say whatever she wanted. Bro, that was a mistake. Yoram lost her mind and screamed she was going to kill him with her bare hands, throwing a punch at his face while Gall yelled in pure panic. But just before Yoram's fist landed, a big hand snatched her arm. Guess who? Our boy Jite finally arrived. Gall was so relieved she almost cheered when she saw him. Jite just looked annoyed, saying they'd already pulled him into a mess the second he got there. Yoram started yelling, trying to explain the journalist was the real problem, but he didn't care. He picked her up like a sack of potatoes and threw her over his shoulder. Yoram started hammering his back with her fists, demanding to be put down, but our boy just said the interview was over, ice cold. Then he turned to the shaking journalist with these terrifying eyes and warned him not to write anything about what just happened. And bro, the pressure came off him like a storm, so intense the camera's glass literally shattered and the journalist hit the floor, wetting his pants in total terror. Even Yoram, hanging over his shoulder, just stared at him in shock. Our man wasn't playing around. Jitae then walked off carrying Yoram, telling Gal to hurry up or they'd be late for class. Meanwhile, Juhai stood back, her eyes wide, and asked her assistant if he saw that crazy scene. The assistant said maybe they should find out which family the girl belonged to. But Juhai has a different thing in her mind. She just looked at Gal and asked how the fuck her chest is so massive. Bro, I lost my words. Even assistant Kim only face-palmed. Next scene, everyone's in the lecture hall. Professor Kai showed up, standing tall and serious. He introduced himself as the swordsmanship professor and said today's lesson was about the history of swordsmanship and the right attitude to have toward the sword. But Yoram, sitting next to Jitae, rolled her eyes so hard they almost fell out, calling all that attitude talk boring and asking when they'd finally get to fight. Our boy was surprised she even stayed for the boring part, but Yoram just shrugged, saying she was used to watching boring dramas to the end anyway. She let the real truth slip. She wanted to get stronger and crush that armored guy Javier herself one day. She asked Jitae why he picked this class to sit in with her, instead of following Baum or Gal. And he just told her the answer was something she already knew better than anyone. He was sure the red-haired dragon was going to do something crazy again if he wasn't nearby. But Yoram said she had been totally chill lately and claimed she was innocent. Bro, not even 5 minutes passed since she almost punched that journalist in the face. Of course, our hero called her out on it, reminding her how she almost decked the reporter just now. Yoram got all defensive, saying that dude was a pig who deserved it and that he started it, not her. Then, for some reason, she slumped against Jitae's shoulder, trying to get close. He just looked at her with his usual cold stare and told her to get off, saying it was hot. Yoram gave him this sly smile and teased him, asking why he was acting like that when most guys would go insane for this kind of move. She asked if he was shy or something, but our boy ignored her completely, staying silent like he was made of stone. Yoram made a pouty face, looking all offended because he didn't give her the reaction she wanted. Soon, she put her head down on the table and whined that this was boring. Jitae told her straight up that studying isn't supposed to be fun, but she added she wasn't even talking about studying, she was talking about him. Yoram shot back that even a kidnapper should be at least a little interesting, and that she thought he'd be some kind of psycho, not this cold and flat like a stone. She said she'd been expecting wild, exciting days after meeting someone like him, but ended up with nothing but boring family vibes. Jitae replied that she should find the chaos on the way to school exciting enough. But Yoram's eyes lit up like a maniac, saying she wanted more fighting, more chaos, and the adrenaline of crushing her enemies. Not this boring stuff. Right on cue, Professor Kai noticed the crazy battle-hungry look in Yoram's eyes and, instead of being scared, actually seemed happy about it. His eye glowed with a weird green light as he muttered that he had just the cure for someone like her. Then, in front of the whole class, he ordered Yoram and her guardian to stay after class. Yoram just glared at him with pure rage and nerves. Yikes, she was in for something. Fast forward to the next scene. Yoram was stuck in the sports equipment warehouse, cleaning wooden swords with the look of someone about to explode. She was so mad, slamming stuff on the ground and yelling that cleaning was 100 times worse than getting beat up. She said her anger just got worse the more she thought about it. Our MC, though, just told her in his "I don't care" voice to quit whining and keep wiping. Yoram, always looking for an easy way out, suggested they should just call the janitor guardian from home to do the dirty work, since that guy loved cleaning anyway. And our boy asked her, dead serious, who would watch Gyul then? She just scowled and muttered that blue was useless. She suddenly changed the topic and asked if he was a good student when he was a kid. Jitae, not even looking up, said he never had time to study. Yoram snorted at that, calling him empty-headed and saying, no time is just a lame excuse. He then explained he was busy trying to stay alive, because things were pretty much war all the time back then. That shut Yoram up for a second. She wasn't sure if he was messing with her, and asked what that would make her if he was telling the truth. She got all serious, lit a cigarette, and hit him with a real question. Did he think life was fun? Jitae answered her with the deadest eyes possible, saying life wasn't the fun and games she imagined. Yoram was surprised, honestly not understanding why anyone would live that way, and told him if she had his kind of power, she would never waste her life in boredom. She joked that maybe he was just burnt out from being too powerful. Our boy just looked tired and old, and said the real reason was that life just kept going. He couldn't give up even if he wanted to. Yoram made fun of him, saying he sounded like a depressed teenager, so he just told her coldly to shut up and finish cleaning. Bro, he had no energy for her nonsense. At night, now Yoram was messing with a Rubik's Cube, looking bored as ever while the janitor guardian cleaned around her like it was his life's mission. In the background, Bomb and Gyul were playing with toy blocks, doing their own thing. The guardian kept hovering around Yoram, watching her struggle with the puzzle, which made her lose her temper. She yelled at him to stop staring because he was making her lose focus, and the poor guy apologized, shaking like a leaf. She then flopped onto the couch, looking bored, while the guardian just watched her with pity. Bomb gently asked if Yoram was still upset about the journalist thing from this morning. Yoram said no. It was just because life was boring, and she hadn't had a good fight in ages. Then, out of nowhere, she called Bomb a big sister, and Bomb pretty much had a heart attack. She jumped up and asked if Yoram needed to go to the hospital, acting like she couldn't believe her ears. Yoram gave up and just called her you from then on. She then suddenly got deep, sitting in front of her and asking what she lived for. Bomb was surprised, and whispered to Gyul that Yoram must finally be hitting puberty. Yoram screamed, saying she could hear her, and why Gyul was also agreeing to that bullshit. Then she told them how she asked Jite what he found fun about life, and repeated his answer, that life just keeps going so you can't give it up. She said that dude clearly didn't feel any joy at all, and declared that the whole point of living was to feel happiness. There was no point otherwise. She pointed at Gal, who looked super happy just eating, and how Gyul was happy when playing with her teddy bear. As proof that some people got it right. People would want to live for happiness. Bomb tried to say maybe Jite just hadn't told them what he liked, but Yoram cut her off, telling her she was exactly the same, mysterious, unreadable, and honestly, boring. She challenged Bomb to name one fun thing in her life. Bomb's eyes sparkled and she dropped the bomb. She thought Jite was surprisingly shy sometimes. Yoram was so shocked she just stared. She called that nonsense, saying Jite was just a cold-blooded psycho. But Bomb smiled and said at first she thought so too. But now she thought he had a cute side. Yoram suddenly said her smile was so creepy that it was scary. Then, unable to handle it, she pounced and started tickling Bomb while Bomb squealed and tried to escape. She asked if they are dating or something. But there, Gyul just watched them both with disappointment, holding her doll while wondering why these two dragon is not mature at all. Man, these people really had their own weird version of family bonding. Out of nowhere, Gal came charging up the stairs like a rocket and told everyone that the whole Lair community was talking about Yoram and, get this, a fan cafe had just been made for her. But looking at those two dragon-looking sus, she blushed hard and said sorry for interrupting. Hearing that, Yoram yelled that she got the wrong idea. The next morning, our boy was wearing his shirt, looking completely unfazed, as usual. God damn, he looks so ripped and fine. Bro, I know you are majestic as hell. Anyway, the door swung open, and Bomb peeked in, calling his name sweetly. She looked a bit nervous, hesitating for a second before telling him she had a request. But when looking at those 8-packs, she got shy and apologized. But Jite just told her it was okay to come in after he finished getting dressed. Bomb then walked in, all dressed up in her neat uniform, and asked him, super shyly, if he could go with her today. Man, she looked like she was working up all her courage just to ask that. Anyway, she reminded him, all pouty, that he always went out with Yoram and Gal but never with her, not even once. She even scolded him for it, turning those puppy eyes up to max level. The poor guy tried to defend himself, thinking about how just hanging out with Yoram meant dealing with her crazy violence, and Gal always begged for food. Man, he just felt exhausted remembering all that. So he tried to say no to Bomb's request. But of course, that's when Yoram and Gal rolled in. Gal asked Bomb why she wasn't going to school, and Yoram told her she should at least finish her food first. Then Bomb just dropped the bomb. She announced she was asking their master out on a date. Gal looked ready to faint, while Yoram guessed, being all realistic, that Bomb just wanted a guardian to go with her. Gal took it seriously and asked Jite why he never went out with Bomb, saying it felt like he was favoring Yoram and herself. Our boy denied it, but Gal just laughed with some toast in her mouth, saying favoritism was bad but she got it. She started talking about her mom, who met tons of guys but only liked a few. Yoram was totally impressed by that, calling Gal's mom amazing. Bomb, though, looked lost in thought, wondering if the men left behind by Gal's mom felt the same as she did now. Jite asked what she meant, and Bomb snapped at him, saying he kidnapped her and then acted like she didn't matter. Like ignoring a fish after catching it? She looked sad and pretty lonely, honestly. Yoram stepped in, saying she understood why our protagonist always watched them, since trouble followed them around, but this time, she promised not to cause any problems and asked him to go with Bomb. She reminded him that he couldn't babysit them all forever. Our MC thought it over and finally gave in. Hearing that, Bomb was so happy then winked at Jite like she just won the lottery. Bro, I think she really likes our MC. Fast forward, and now they were at the academy in this big fancy hall filled with students. Staff nearby whispered about Bomb's beauty and how she crushed the interview with a perfect score. Some of them wondered about her family, and one jerk made fun of the U family name, calling it low status. Bro, what a snob. Our hero just sat there behind them, overhearing everything. Class ended, and the teacher announced the start of social dance training. Everyone looked like they would rather eat dirt than try that. The teacher teased them about being shy, saying they needed this because they'd have to dance at high-class events for their families. She basically said the real embarrassment would be if they didn't know how to act in a fancy setting. Then she told everyone to find a partner. Suddenly, the whole room turned awkward, with kids trying to look cool while finding a dance partner. Now here's the funny part. People were shocked Bomb didn't have a partner since they thought every guy would be lining up for her. But she stood alone, like she was surrounded by some invisible wall. People whispered that she just seemed untouchable, like even trying to talk to her was scary. The professor noticed Bomb was still solo. Bomb, a little nervous, admitted that she wasn't exactly popular. The professor, being nice, offered to partner up with her because she was so pretty. But then Bomb surprised everyone by asking if her guardian could be her partner instead. The professor was so stunned she just agreed. And then Bomb ran at Jite so fast it was almost a blur. Then, she held out her hand, basically dragging him to the dance floor. He looked kind of annoyed and admitted he sucked at dancing. Bomb gave him these big, watery eyes, begging him not to ditch her now. Our MC had no choice. He just sighed and gave up. The dance lesson started. The professor told everyone to hold hands and follow the rhythm. Jite stood in front of Bomb, who looked away, all shy, while he actually trembled a little. She noticed how awkward he was and asked if he was embarrassed to touch her. He denied it, acting cold as usual, but Bomb grabbed his hand tightly, which totally threw him off. She explained that holding hands didn't mean they were suddenly in love or anything, and he just said, he got it. But then she got all serious and warned him he better not mess up and ruin her grades. That was a real threat. They started dancing, and actually moved together really well. Bomb thought to herself that her master's hands were sweating buckets, and not just his hands, his back and chest too. She wondered what the hell made him so nervous. Right then, Bomb pictured he ripped muscles under his shirt, and her face turned bright red. She got so flustered she tripped, but our boy grabbed her before she could hit the floor. Their faces ended up super close, and suddenly Bomb's nose started bleeding. Bro, just kiss already, god damn it! Next thing, they were outside the hall. Bomb sat there, sipping juice with a tissue in her nose. Our MC asked if she needed a hospital, looking a little worried. Bomb was confused and said she felt fine, didn't even hit anything. But Jite thought it was weird. Why the nosebleed? But Bomb totally avoided his eyes and said she had no idea. She then changed the topic, saying the important thing was, he danced way better than she expected. She stared at him sharp and asked if he learned dancing before. Our boy remembered, for a second, dancing really well with another woman at night, promising her he would get better. Then he snapped back and lied to Bomb, saying he never learned before. Bomb looked at him with total suspicion, sipping her juice. Then she asked if he had any plans after school. He said, nope. So she tied her hair up, got all fired up, and told him to come with her so they could do something fun. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Russia, it is not chill at all. There's some kind of creepy demon lab run by the Invisibility Gang. Sirens are howling, and the place is seriously freaking out. Scientists are running around, slipping on blood, and one of them is cursing out loud about how everything went to hell. Total chaos. One lady, a researcher with some obvious demon vibes, is sprinting through the halls, just desperate to get out. She's panicking, asking herself what kind of monster just showed up and started wrecking the place. She finds a door, tries to get through, but it's locked. She's not stupid. She already knows there's no way their weak security can stop whatever is coming. She tries to call her boss for help, but before she can even scream for backup, boom, Jite's shadow pops up right behind her. Our MC, looking cold and scary in all black, asks her where she thinks she's going in such a hurry. The poor woman freezes. She's shaking, stuck between a killer and a dead end, and just blurts out, asking what the hell he wants from her. Yuji's eyes go all blue and glowy. Yeah, you know it's about to get dark. He just asks her straight up if her boss is searching for something. He's especially interested in something called Prototype X, some next-level demon weapon. The lady refuses, freaking out even more, and screams she'd rather die than snitch. Our boy doesn't mess around. His shadowy hand shoots out and grabs her by the throat. While shadows swirl around, he comments, cold as ever, that demons always show their true colors when they're about to die. He looks right in her eyes and thinks to himself how, when the pain gets real, these demons go from pretending to be human to looking like broken puppets. Seriously, not pretty. He lifts her up and, with this creepy sarcasm, tells her she gets to dance alone under the moonlight. Man, that's brutal. After killing the demon, our boy stood over her dead body, blood dripping from his hand. Suddenly, he called out for his master. Ah, so this is the shadow? Dude, he looked 100% real. Anyway, the shadow report to Jite, saying it found out Prototype X already been moved to the big boss's HQ, and this was going to be difficult. Since this new prototype is a girl, unlike the last timeline, Jite then orders the shadow to put on a disguise as the researcher he killed earlier and sneak into Invisibility's main base to find out what Prototype X really is this time. The shadow agrees, all loyal, and gets ready to go undercover. Now, the story just jumps right back to our hero. He was sitting in some kind of clothing store, waiting. This Prototype X is a demonic human, possessing the strongest human it has eaten after combining a lot of different kinds of demons into one. The longer this shit survives, the more humans it gathers, growing into an increasingly dangerous being. For that reason, our boy always kills this Prototype X the first time in every regression. But this time, the information is different from the previous regression, making the search extremely difficult. Even the vintage clock explained that someone sent the malice and deviated the world's timeline. Well, it doesn't matter. He would kill that X and never let anyone disrupt his daily life. And now somehow our boy was dealing with another kind of danger. Bomb, the green dragon girl, calling him from behind a curtain. She wants him to look at something. So he turns around, probably expecting something basic. Yeah? Nope. Bomb struts out in a seriously bold black swimsuit with a see-through cover, grinning and asking if it looks good. Bro, this girl is a menace. Of course, Jide looks away and asks what the hell she's doing. Bomb laughs, all casual, and says summer is coming so she wanted to buy a swimsuit. Then, get this. She invites him to come inside the curtain to check it out close up, since he can't see well from out there. Our boy is like, is this that fun thing you wanted to do? Because if so, wow, what a prank. Bomb just pouts, saying it's super fun for her. Jite warns her, real serious, not to get too weird with her jokes or else she'll see his bad side. He was not playing. But Bomb just keeps up the teasing, and when they leave the store, she hums and asks if she should just buy that swimsuit. Jite tries to change the topic and tells her if she's done, they should head home. But Bomb suddenly gets serious and reminds him the real reason they came out, buying gifts for the other dragon girls. Our hero is kind of surprised. Gifts? Bomb explains that Gyul's old teddy bear is basically torn at this point, so she wants to get her a new one, plus gifts for everyone else too. Our boy asks what she's thinking for the others. Bomb says Gaul only ever buys clothes and doesn't care about anything else, so she's getting her a nice wallet for when she starts hanging out with friends. For Yoram, Bomb says she asked her yesterday, and Yoram wanted something she saw in a movie, but honestly, it sounded kinda odd. So Bomb suggests they split up. She'll find Gaul in Yoram's presence, and he should pick out the new teddy bear for Gyul. Our boy agrees right away, probably glad to escape the swimsuit madness for a minute. As he leaves, Bomb looks after him and wonders if it was really okay leaving gift duty to someone like him. Even she seemed worried, bro. And now, our boy walks into this toy store. The girl working behind the counter is bored out of her mind, until she sees him. She looks him up and down and thinks, damn, this guy must be late 20s or early 30s, tall, built, and honestly straight up handsome. She notices there's no girlfriend with him and figures he has zero clue about what to buy for kids. Her eyes light up. She thinks she's about to hustle an easy target and make some cash, so she greets him all sweet, asking how old the kid is. Jite, holding the teddy bear, says the girl is about 4. The employee just loves this, claps her hands, and says that's the cutest age, then asks if it's his daughter. Our MC says, nope, she's just a kid he knows. The employee tries again, guessing he's the uncle, and gives him props, saying not many uncles bother picking out presents themselves. She acts all confident the kid will love it. Our MC just stared at her, but she was already on her sales mission, showing off all these roleplay toys and saying that playing hospital games with the kid would make them best friends or something. She even tried to hook him up with a doctor set and said there was a 10% discount if he bought it with the other sets. Classic sales move. Now Jite was just standing there, but as soon as he imagined little Gyul in a nurse outfit, he caved. Dude agreed without thinking twice. The employee was loving it, probably thinking she just won the lottery. Next thing, he was carrying this crazy mountain of boxes and gifts, following the employee to the counter. She told him not to worry. The price might look big, but it was all for the kid's emotional growth, and he would totally thank her later. At the register, she asked if he'd pay by card, and Jite said yes. But when he handed over this black card, the kind only super rich people have, she nearly lost it. Suddenly, she realized why he'd just nodded and bought everything she suggested. In her head, our boy went from clueless dad to some kind of hot millionaire. She started wondering if maybe he was married, and she even started thinking about making a move. So she tried to pull it off all shy and asked him if he had a girlfriend. But before he could say anything, Bomb popped up out of nowhere, grabbed his arm, and called him out. She stared at the pile of toys and asked in shock if he really bought all that stuff. The employee immediately got disappointed, thinking Bomb was his girlfriend, and she gave up on her dream right there. Bomb wasn't impressed. She wanted to know why Jitae bought all this random junk when they just needed a doll for Gyeul. The employee finally realized, oh, maybe Bomb was his little sister. She tried to save the sale, saying the kid might need time to get used to these toys, but Bomb totally shut her down. Her whole face went dark, and she gave off this scary vibe as she told the employee that she already said Gyeul doesn't like these kinds of toys. She then picked up a simple teddy bear and said this one would be best because it looked like the doll Gyeul used to have, so she wouldn't get confused. At that point, Jitae admitted that was the doll he meant to buy in the first place. Then Bomb turned to the employee with the brightest smile and asked if they could get a VIP discount on just this bear instead. Next thing you know, it's nighttime at home and the girls are going wild over the gifts. Gal and Yoram were basically screaming as soon as they saw the presents. On the floor, there were all these luxury gift bags and the new brown bear sitting on top. Gal was dancing around, happy tears in her eyes, holding her brand new wallet and saying she loved Bomb and Jitae even more now. She said she always wanted to buy that wallet but never dared. Yoram was standing with her gift bag, and Gyeul was looking at her new bear like it was pure magic. Gal asked Yoram what gift she got, since Gyeul got the doll. Even Yoram had to check what was inside her bag. Turns out, she had actually gotten adult toys, just like she'd asked for. She was holding a pair of handcuffs and a whip, and had this straight-up demonic grin on her face. She called Gal monkey, and told her to come closer and try something, but Gal noped out so fast, running away in total panic. Yoram chased after her with the cuffs, and Gal was screaming for help like it was the end of the world. Honestly, sounded like a horror movie in there. Meanwhile, our boy just sat on the side, holding little Gyeul in his lap. She hugged her new teddy bear and looked so happy, our boy could finally relax for a second. Bomb then came over, holding a small box and told him to take it too. When he opened it, he found a navy blue tie inside. She said she got it for him because he always wore the same old tie to class. She promised that when she made her own money someday, she'd buy him a whole new suit. So he thanked her, all quiet. Then he asked if she bought anything for herself, like he told her to, and Bomb said she did. He wanted to know what it was, but she just smiled that sneaky, bright smile and said she'd show him later. Suspicious, right? Girl was definitely up to something. A few weeks passed, and the scene jumped to the janitor opening the room door. The Guardian found Jitae getting dressed and ready to head out. Our boy told him straight he'd be gone for about 3 days and that the janitor needed to watch over Gyeul while he was away. The janitor asked if he was traveling far, and our protagonist said yes, adding that Yoram was coming with him. Then the story jumped again to a big, busy square full of students. Some huge event was starting. The event was a combat simulation against demons, and all the kids were walking around in groups with sci-fi gear everywhere. This purple gate appeared, and someone explained that it was a survival training inside a virtual dungeon for 3 days and 2 nights. The students had to move in teams of 3, and the Guardian would give orders as the operator, just like real monster raids. And now this operator job is Jitae's new job, so he put on his headset and got ready to be the operator. Yoram just laughed at the nervous kids, saying they looked terrified and wondering if any of them had ever seen a real fight before. Jitae warned her not to be overconfident, but she just shrugged it off like she didn't care. He kept reminding her that this wasn't a solo mission and she needed to find a team. But Yoram insisted she'd only team up with people she actually liked. Right then, 2 students, a boy and a girl, walked over, super nervous, and the boy politely asked if Yoram wanted to join their team since she was still free. Yoram, being Yoram, just blew up at them, called them losers, and told them to get lost. But our boy stepped in and asked their names. The boy said he was Hisaki Sojiro, and the girl said she was Kim Jiin. They both bowed and promised to do their best and not drag her down. Yoram screamed at them again, still trying to chase them off, but Jitae just said, understood, into the headset, accepting them as the team. Yoram couldn't believe it and yelled at him, saying she never agreed. But he just shot her a cold look and told her if she didn't like it, she could go join another team. In the end, she had no choice. So she grumbled and called the whole thing a pain, but she went along anyway. Man, teamwork really is hard for some people. She then welcomed them, and let's just say her welcome was not very friendly. She told them straight up that if they got in her way during the fight, they would basically be dead meat. Poor Hisaki just started stammering and actually thanked her, but the dude didn't even finish before Pain smacked him from behind. Out of nowhere, this shady-looking guy with blonde hair showed up and smacked him on the head so hard the kid nearly cried. This punk called Hisaki a loser and reminded him about some old threat. Something about killing him if he got in the way again. Hisaki just apologized, shaking all over. Meanwhile, Jiin just stood there cold as ice, so the punk got annoyed. He asked her why she was being so quiet while her boyfriend was apologizing for both of them. Then, being a total jerk, he grabbed her hair and yanked her head up. Jiin only glared at him, not saying a word, just giving him that silent death stare. The punk's friend tried to tell him to chill out because the guardians were around, but the punk, whose name was Johnny, just sneered and said adults didn't care about these orphans. Johnny kept messing with Jean, telling her to lift her bangs because she looked all gloomy, and tried to force her to do it. But this was the wrong move, because Yoram stepped in with that scary look, wanting to know what he meant by orphans. Johnny totally froze up. He immediately realized just who this red-haired girl was. That's right. He recognized Yoram as the crazy bitch of the Blue Dragon dorms. Yoram repeated her question, her voice getting sharper and scarier by the second, demanding he explain. Johnny was sweating bullets now. He remembered all those warnings from his family. Basically, the elders had told him to stay far away from Yoram unless he wanted to lose all his teeth. So, trying to keep his cool, Johnny explained that orphans were students at Lair, who didn't have a guardian. Then he shot a smug look at Hisaki and Jean and said it was just another word for loser kids, with no one to protect them. Yoram finally got it. She realized her team was so weak because they were basically the beggars of the school. She muttered something angry under her breath. She was not happy about being stuck with these two. Then Johnny got even dumber. He put his hand down on Yoram's shoulder like they were old buddies and told her she should ditch her team and join his instead. He said they'd even make room for her, but his own teammates were not happy about that. Well, Johnny was actually thinking that even if Yoram was insane, her power made her a great ally, so he wanted her on his side. Bro, this stupid-ass blonde was messing with the wrong girl. Yoram just stared at him, quiet. Johnny thought she might say yes and maybe she was just as nuts as he was. He was about to start celebrating, but then, bam. Yoram punched him right in the face. Not even a warning. Everybody lost it. His friends, her teammates, even Hisaki and Jian just stood there totally shocked. Yoram brushed her shoulder off like she was wiping away trash, and then glared at Johnny, who was now holding his face and groaning. She asked him if he wanted to die and told him off for putting his dirty hand on her. She said he must be nuts if he thought they were even close. Johnny got so shocked, he wanted to scream at her, cussing her out and saying she was acting all high and mighty, but he was terrified. Yoram kept telling him if she caught him again, he'd be dead for real. Johnny could only storm off, and everyone could see he was actually scared out of his mind. Even Yoram's teammates looked at her like she was a demon. Not far away, Jite was watching all of this, totally chill. But before things could get any messier, the school's big announcement blasted over the speakers, saying all students needed to get ready. A huge gate appeared, and Professor Kai showed up to explain the rules. The guy said everyone would split into teams and start from different places in a virtual dungeon. He said there were points for every action, activity, kills, deaths, even damage, and rankings would be shown live so everyone could see. There was a super important rule. If someone died, they'd respawn somewhere else after 3 hours, so everyone had to be careful. Oh, and the dungeon was called the Ant Tunnel. In the end, the professor wished them luck and told everyone to get moving. So, Yoram and her team went through the gate into the dungeon. She looked around, pretty impressed by how real it all felt. She was pumped, ready to start bashing people right away, but Jian stopped her, worried if she even knew where to find the other teams. Yoram just said if they ran around, they'd run into people for sure. But Jian was not having it, she explained. They couldn't just run all over the place since they didn't have Yoram's speed or stamina. She warned that going wild could get them ambushed from behind. Yoram rolled her eyes and made fun of her, thinking Jian was just showing off how weak she was. Jian wanted to make a plan first, but Yoram called her a coward and told them to just cover her while she did all the fighting herself. The girl shot back that this was a team event, not a free-for-all. Suddenly, Yoram's eyes lit up with that scary fire, and she reminded them they only got to be on her team because she felt bad for them. So they shouldn't act all brave now. Hisaki tried to calm everyone down, but the whole thing was turning into a mess. That's when our boy spoke up. He asked if Jean had a target number of teams they wanted to take out, then asked how many teams the girls wanted him to destroy first. Jean looked at him like he was crazy, saying this was impossible. Other operators would never reveal their locations like that. Yoram caught on quick though, and got this wild, excited look. She told Jite she wanted to wipe out every single team she ran into. Then the scene switched to another spot in the dungeon. Johnny was there, still clutching his nose, whining about the pain. His friends started scolding him for being stupid and messing with Yoram, even after all their families warned them. Johnny tried to pretend he was just being friendly, and had no clue she'd go nuts like that. His buddy asked if he was actually going to kick someone off the team for Yoram, and Johnny freaked out, saying he was just testing her. He said he was going to destroy Yoram the next time he saw her, But suddenly he heard a creepy voice from above, repeating his exact words. "Tear me apart." Johnny looked up and boom, Yoram was dropping down from the ceiling, sword ready, with the scariest smile ever. She dared him to try and make good on his threat. Next thing, she smashed into Johnny's face with a brutal kick, sending his HP into the basement, and the whole area shook from the impact. Johnny's friends screamed, calling it an ambush and pulling out their weapons. But Yoram landed on the ground in a squat, laughing at them. She told them they had it all wrong. This wasn't a fight. With eyes glowing blood red and a grin that could haunt your nightmares, she said this was a one-sided hunt. Bro, those kids were doomed. One of Johnny's teammates fired his fancy gun, but Yoram just dodged with her sword shining like she was about to start a massacre. The dude screamed at her not to come closer, but bro, she didn't care at all. She swatted away his energy blast like it was nothing. Dude probably didn't even see her move. Then bam, she hit him with such a hard slash that his HP bar dropped straight to 0. The poor guy never stood a chance. Another guy with a huge sword ran at her, yelling his head off, thinking he might actually win just because his weapon was bigger. He tried to smash down at her like he was some hero, but seriously, what was he thinking? Yoram just grinned and completely overpowered him. She even asked if he really thought he could win a strength contest against her. After that, she sent him flying with a red glowing hit, HP straight to 0. I almost felt bad for these guys, but come on, they were asking for it. So now Yoram was just standing there, looking bored as hell with all the boys knocked out around her. She actually complained that this didn't even count as a warm-up. Talk about savage. She looked around asking if that was it, and one of her teammates, Hisaki, pointed out that Johnny was still alive, cowering on the ground like a mess. Poor Johnny, man. His face was a total wreck, nose bleeding, teeth busted. He tried to give a pathetic smile and asked if she could stop smashing his face. Yeah, no luck there. Yoram just gave him one last brutal kick and dropped his HP to 0. That's what you get for talking big, dude. Meanwhile, Hisaki was freaking out, saying Yoram beat everyone by herself. Jean looked at Yoram like she was some kind of legend and said she finally understood why Yoram was famous, but honestly, she was more impressed by the guy running the show, meaning our MC. How this man catching up to the other teams without using mana was pretty insane, because yeah, Operator couldn't use magic here. Also, Jean was thinking that his timing for the ambush was perfect and that his tracking and orders were on another level. She was seriously wondering if he was a first-tier operator. I mean, the guy barely even looked interested, and everyone else was geeking out. Then we got this system message. Team 37 was wiped, and they'd respawn in 3 hours somewhere else. Hisaki was super hyped. They knocked out one team and already hit 6th place. Jean pointed out that not many teams had even started fighting since the simulation just kicked off. But Hisaki kept bragging about how Yoram took out a whole team without a scratch. The guy even tried to compliment her, but dude made a big mistake. The second he called her amazing, Yoram grabbed his face and squeezed his cheeks hard, looking furious. Her eyes went blood red and she yelled, asking why he was even happy since he didn't do anything besides watch from the back. She started yelling at both teammates, asking if their weapons were just for decoration since they didn't snipe anyone during her fight. Hisaki and Ji-in just stared at the ground, looking all guilty. The girl wasn't having any of that be proud of 6th place stuff. She was screaming that they were going for 1st place, no exceptions. Hisaki and Ji-in could barely answer, nodding and looking like they wanted to disappear. Meanwhile, back at the dorm, Baby Gyul was sitting on the floor hugging her teddy bear, thinking about Jite. The janitor dude was in the back, rocking a pink apron and cleaning up the place. Yeah, this house was a circus. 2 days later, the story jumped to Lair Academy, all shiny under a clear sky. In the mock dungeon control room, some professor named Kwon Gite was lazing around with his coffee, chatting with his assistant. He asked about the rankings, and the assistant said Team 1 was in 1st, but Team 50, Yoram's team, was super close. The dude was surprised, calling Yoram the crazy one, and couldn't believe her squad was 2nd. The assistant thought their operator chaperone, yup, our MC, was carrying them hard and showed off their wild route on the map. Gite was a little offended since he used to be an operator too, but he admitted he'd never heard of a guy like Jite. The professor was suspicious, thinking the background check on our protagonist was way too clean, like someone erased it. He started wondering if something was up with this team, especially with Yoram, Bomb, and this mysterious guardian. But there was another weird thing. The assistant said Team 1's route never overlapped with 3rd or 4th place, like they were signaling each other. Professor Gitai said, "Dude, it's not cheating if you're just using tactics, but if they don't fight when they meet, then it's a problem." Guess he was keeping an eye out for some real drama. Cut back to the dungeon, and Yoram was totally losing it. She smashed her fist into the ground, making cracks everywhere, and shouted at her team, asking why they were still in 2nd place even though they hadn't died once. Hisaki, looking like a mummy, said second place was good enough, but Yoram was not having it. She said if it's not first, it's nothing, and kicked the ground so hard that debris flew everywhere. He just lost HP just from being around her. Jian tried to calm her down, saying they were tired and should play it safe since there wasn't much time left. Yoram's face finally softened for a second. She patted Jian's shoulder and said they did okay, that they'd improved. Jian looked happy for half a second, but then Yoram just snapped again, saying that's why they were losers, and yanked her up by the collar. She asked if they knew why everyone looked down on them. It wasn't because they were loners, but it was because they gave up as soon as things got tough, calling them losers in the most savage way possible. She told them they'd promised not to drag her down, so they better get up and stop acting pathetic. Jean and Hisaki were shaking, but they swore to go for first place. Yoram stood between them, looking like an evil boss, with her sword resting on her shoulder while her teammates looked like they wanted to run for their lives. Our MC just watched, still calm, just waiting for the next move. He said if the drama is over, they'd better watch this. Looking at the wall here, Yoram suddenly realized something was off. She said it was weird how those top teams never ran into each other. So, they are using some kind of sign on the wall? Hisaki remembered hearing that the seniors sometimes formed secret alliances to dodge each other in these games. They figured Team 1 might be doing that this time. Jian suggested maybe they should tell the professors about it. But Yoram just grinned with the scariest look, saying she had a better idea, a way to really mess those guys up. The look on her face said she wasn't joking. Yup, if I were those seniors, I'd be real nervous right now. This red dragon is not someone you should mess with. Meanwhile, Team 1 was strutting around this creepy cave, acting like kings because they were still in first place. The blonde dude on their team checked his wrist and saw they had about 40 minutes left in the simulation. He asked if Team 50, yeah, Yoram's crew, was still stuck in second, and the red-haired girl said they were, but claimed there was nothing to worry about. She told everyone they'd win for sure, as long as they didn't do anything dumb. The blonde guy said he'd heard Yoram was good, but was surprised she was doing so well as a first year. He admitted it could have been risky if they hadn't made plans. You could tell he was a little too smug for his own good. Their leader, this guy Yong Myung-ho, started glaring and acting all serious. The red-haired girl got mad at the blonde dude, yelling that there was no way anyone could be better than their boss. She got way too salty about it, honestly. She called him a pig and told him to watch his mouth. That was a bit much. Yong Myung-ho, who came from some fancy sword clan, told everyone not to get cocky. He said the test wasn't over yet, and blurted out that he needed first place so the clan's patriarch would finally see he was better than his rival. Yong Tae-ha, the poor guy had some real family issues, huh? Suddenly, everything turned into a nightmare. The wall was now full of the code they agreed on before. Team 1 members dropped down and stared in shock. There was so much code, so they had no idea where to go, and everyone started freaking out. The blonde guy was especially losing it, asking who the hell would mess up the cave like this. While they were panicking, other teams showed up, just as lost. Team 1 realized these folks were Team 3 and supposed to be their allies, but now it looked like they'd have to fight them just to keep the act up for the professors. The blonde guy whispered if they had to fake losing, but Myung-ho said their professor wasn't an idiot and would totally catch them cheating. Yeah, that plan was cooked. Without wasting time, he just said they'd have to kill the other teams. So now everyone was about to throw hands for real, and you could feel the panic rising. Up on a ledge, our girl Yoram was just watching the chaos with the biggest evil grin on her face. She was loving this. Her teammates, Hisaki and Ji-in, were looking a bit freaked out though. He couldn't believe her plan to mess with the top teams actually worked. Before, Ji-in asked if Yoram really wanted to use her crazy strategy against these seniors, and Yoram just smirked, telling them to keep making more markings around the cave to keep everyone confused. She said she'd go hunt for points, and if she ran into Team 1, well, she'd just beat them up. Classic Yoram move. Ji-in then asked what they should do if they met another team. Yoram waved it off and said she'd lend them this guy, meaning our MC, who would keep them safe. Ji-tae, in the back, was like, bro, am I just a tool to these kids? He didn't look happy, but Yoram was all smiles, waiting for his approval. She kept pestering him, asking if her plan was awesome or what. Our MC just stared like a brick wall before admitting it wasn't bad. She was totally smug about it, thinking her plan was the coolest thing ever. To be honest, it was pretty clever, but she didn't really need his opinion. She just wanted to brag. Down below, the fighting started for real. Myung-ho and Team 1 went wild, beating up other teams. Even when his teammates said she died in the simulation, he just told her it was fine since they got extra points. He was totally focused on surviving and winning. But just when he thought things were under control, a voice from above said they probably wouldn't survive at all. That's right. Yoram dropped in like some kind of villain, sword out and red hair flying. She called herself the real villain in the chaos, And man, she looked ready to wreck things. Yoram's team got her back from up high, with Hisaki and Jin hiding on the cliff. Myungho realized it really was her, the crazy first year who'd been messing up the scores. He then told his injured teammate to go take out Hisaki and Jin on the ledge. The blonde dude didn't want to do it, saying they could just stall and still win, but Myungho went full boss mode, eyes glowing purple and everything, basically telling him to shut up and obey. The blonde guy grumbled but ran off to go fight, leaving a trail of energy behind. Up on the cliff, he found Hisaki and Jin, told them he was busy, and said they should make this quick. The two just screamed and ran for their lives to our MC. Yeah, they are smart to hide behind our boy. When the blonde guy chased them down like he was possessed, Jide easily kicked his fat ass butt. Guess being cocky also didn't work out for him, huh? Meanwhile, Myungho and Yoram started their real showdown. Myungho yelled that he was the one Yoram should be paying attention to. Yoram kicked him so hard the dude went flying. He asked if she was really Yoram, and said it was impressive how she ruined his plan. But Yoram answered that it wasn't even much of a plan anyway. She called him an idiot to his face. Just brutal. Myungho got right back up, blue energy swirling around him like he wanted to win at all costs. He told her she should settle for second place, because first would always belong to the Yong house. But Yoram, sword glowing with that wild red aura, just grinned and said nope, those guys would be the ones in second. Up on a rock, our boy Jite watched with his flat face like always. He just wanted everything to end fast.